sorry. I apologize for the delay. Some of us were coming from other meetings happening at other schools, so we're still waiting on Dr. McDowell, but we're going to go ahead and get started. We'd like to call this meeting to order on Tuesday, April 21st, the Committee of the Whole meeting. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. So, Mrs. Coleman, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Chu?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Mrs. DeMarco?
Here.
Mrs. Devine?
Here.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Here.
Mrs. Sherman?
Here.
Mrs. Z?
Here.
Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Dilkis?
Here.
Mrs. Maya?
Here.
Okay.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, can I make a motion to enter a committee of the whole, please?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. All right. I believe we have someone here to present. Huh? All in favor? I'm sorry, thank you, Matt. Yeah,
Aye.
thank you. And I believe we have someone here to present, so I'll toss it over to you.
So good evening. I'm Matt McKenzie, and I'm here to talk about the Flexibly Assigned Student Transition Program. So there are 12 more slides, 5 to 10 minutes. So really what we do is we collect geographic data, student numbers, addresses, schools, and grade levels. We'll plot those students in a geographic information system, a map, and we'll apply a proprietary algorithm. We'll measure the driving distance or the walking distance between each address and each school, and we could identify some optimization scenarios. Things like if we know the capacity of certain buildings and the distance to the school and what those class size guidelines are, we use an artificial intelligence algorithm for the computer to tell us really what the optimal assignments would be, so that those distances would be either minimized or things like we can maximize walkers, for example, whatever you want. And we'll identify those and provide actionable information for the superintendent and communicate any opportunities, any chances to save money, or any other ways we could add value. And every year we'll provide quality metrics, things like the percentage of students going to closer schools, the decrease in total commute distance or time, and the number of additional walkers, for example. So everyone probably thought that there's a better way to assign students to schools. Most school districts use fixed catchment areas or some other subjective criteria. The scope of this service is really to aid the community with the Garfield school closure, supporting the assignment of students from there, and also with the kindergarten assignments over the summer. And I think what's good about this program is nobody has to learn any software. They don't have to operate it. We'll create the program. It changes every month, and we'll show the administrators and the board what they want to see, and we'll conduct Zooms to walk the district through any kind of decisions they need to make, and we're right there along there with you operating it. So really the problem is, and this is everywhere in the country, all 13,000 or so school districts, to have multiple schools. Small catchment areas lead to like very high variability of numbers of students, either year over year or across the district. It results in disparate class sizes, and more classrooms and then schools than needed. Oftentimes, a school district that say has multiple elementary schools, you might have a fourth grade class, for example, with 16 students right next to a fourth grade class, again in the same district with maybe 24 students. So we're endeavoring to fix that. We also found that approximately 25 to 30% of students end up going to a school that's not their closest one. We want to fix that as well. Our considerations prioritize student needs, any kind of special education, multilingual learners, any kind of family needs, siblings staying together, minimizing distance, sending them to closer schools when it's all possible. We're concerned about equity needs, so not just having class sizes leveled across the district. It's not only good for and fair for the students, but it's also more fair for the teachers as well. Look at the facility realities. The capacity number of classrooms available is one of the inputs we use, and of course the fiscal realities. So really, the solution is just using modern operations management practices. I like telling as many people that would listen is we really don't have financial problems. Oftentimes, they're just operations management problems. So we're just being flexible, proactive, and using system-wide thinking. In this case, we're combining geographic information systems with business analytics and artificial intelligence to optimize the placements and to tell a story to show you how good the district can be. And it allows everybody to be very, very thoughtful when assigning new students to schools so that your objectives are met. Really, the only way we're ever going to solve the operations management problem anywhere is with a dynamic system that utilizes geographic information systems and data analytics. So here's an example of the GIS tool that's in use for your neighbor Haddon Township School District. We'll build this. It could look something like this. It could look totally different, but this is an example of the Rising Kindergartner tool last summer. We see in the upper left-hand the graphs there that if we didn't do anything and if they just relied on fixed catchment areas with a maximum class size of 25, they would have needed 9 kindergarten classrooms. But we're simply just solving the puzzle very easily, intuitively, visually with this program, and within a few minutes, we can send students to closer schools, minimize the travel, and get this down to just seven classrooms needed. Within this tool also, there's things like multiple layers. We can do things like show the students that are assigned to a school that's not their closest one. We could just show what it would look like if everyone went to their closest school, which is impossible, of course, based on capacities of the buildings. And we could filter by certain grade levels or certain schools also, and build some maps for you. So we're not just saving for like a typical 5 elementary school district that's kindergarten through 5th grade, 6th grade levels. In this case, you're not just saving 2 classrooms per year. It combines every year. So over the course of those 6 years, it's 12 classrooms. And at an average cost of about $150,000, we can save approximately $1.8 million a year, all with a program that's very, very inexpensive. We run it for you. It's very easy to use, and I would say it's actually easier to use and it's cheaper than your current systems. Here's an example of the enrollment report. Kind of shows you that the enrollment doesn't just change year over year, like the October enrollment from one year to the next. It also changes month to month, but you may see reports month to month. Even at a certain grade level, it may seem like every month it's the same number, but typically throughout the year, during that month, there might be 2 families moving in with 2 students at a grade level and 2 students leaving at the same time. So there's always, this is just to show you that there's always opportunities to level class sizes and send students to closer schools. Because during the school year, this is what the application will probably look like, something like this, where it shows you what those numbers are for each school, and in the bottom left-hand corner is an example of a table that shows you what those class sizes are, in this case for the elementary schools, so that as the registrar collects information for new families moving in, if there's a family that lives between two schools, right between two schools, say they can walk between two schools, one has, say, one third grade class has 26 students, the other one has 20 students, you can very easily make a good value decision to send students to the school with the lower class size. So I guess I could stop it right there and ask if there's any questions.
You threw a number out at $150,000 per classroom for an annual cost.
That's like, I think that's light. That's the typical teacher salary, benefits, any technology, any classroom level costs. I think it's about, tends to average about $150,000. Then there's also building level costs on top of that.
Right, that's what I was wondering if that
Yes.
included.
No, that would be something additional to that.
Another number that you put out there was 30% or so of students don't go to their closest elementary school. Is that just sort of nationwide, or are those numbers based on Collingswood, or?
Yeah, good question. I've been studying this for about 10 years, looking at the districts with multiple elementary schools. Of course, districts with just one school, there's no other opportunity, but those with multiple elementary schools, you tend to see that, believe it or not, because over the years with these older schools and neighborhoods changing, they'll just have Band-Aid solutions through redistricting process where they just tack on a certain neighborhood, say, to a school to kind of just balance out the number of students for the school, instead of looking at the actual classrooms and lowering the class sizes and looking at things holistically and assigning students really. And I think what's great about this also is once you go through school buildings or school closures, you're really just looking at the new students, just the new students as they show up, just making these decisions so that they then go to the closer schools.
Thanks.
To piggyback off that really quickly, I actually had the chance to do the walking distance analysis back in 2024 for 2024-2025 school year because of our proposed referendum at that time, and it was 28.4% of students in that school year in Collingswood were not going to their closest elementary school. So it's actually very much so in line with what you have found over the years. Something that I saw, which is that the proposal here is annual price of $5,000 for through, I guess, next year. Is that correct?
Right. I just want to start, and that's just a promotional price. I really want to get to a point where I charge $5,000. I'm sorry, $5 per enrolled student every year. But it just said half of that price for the all of next year. So through June 30th of 2027.
So the anticipated continuation price you said would be $5 per enrolled student.
Right. About 10,000, hopefully.
So scope of service mentions Garfield school closure. How will that be supportive? Because I'm looking at timelines. We just told Garfield that they'll know their assignment by May 8th. So is your program set up to work that quickly
Yes.
students
We could.
by May 8th?
Yeah, oftentimes some GIS companies would take months to get data and plot it. We could do it within a day.
Okay.
We're spring loaded. We're scheduled that Thursday to get the data in the morning and and we'll have a meeting that Friday afternoon for the initial, run through of the placements.
A couple, I think, maybe pieces for your GIS folks. Something when I did do the analysis a couple years ago, some kind of gotchas to mention are that depending on what data set you're using, whether it be Open Maps or Google's, the actual front door for the Parkview apartments can be very different than actually where they're supposed to be, and so that can really skew distances. So you might want to check into that.
Thanks.
Also, question of, for example, I live next to Metropolitan Apartments as well within Collingswood, and then I'm not exactly sure how accurate those by apartment front doors are. And so those were, I think, a couple of just kind of gotchas to keep in mind that given how small our district is, can significantly skew walking distances when you do the calculations.
Thanks.
This, oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
So, question or just around, because I guess we're getting, what information does your company then get, like student-specific information do you get from our district? And then what are the pieces to ensure that that data is safe?
So, yeah, we'll follow through with all the laws. We just get just the student numbers. We don't get any names, so there's no FERPA issues there with that. Names, addresses, schools, and grade levels. And if there's any other information like English as second language, multilingual learners, or any kind of IEPs, anything like that, you want us to, level class sizes for them as well. We'll keep those secure also.
So then maybe, this might be then a staff question about when we get that information, is it then we're going and taking and looking at what was shared and then matching that up with the actual kids to see where placements are, to check for that? Like, what would the follow-through then be on our side, so that we're not just taking what's spit out by a computer, but actually looking at where our kids are going?
Can I add this? This question actually directly ties to that, so maybe an answer just both in one. And this might be a question for you, Dr. McDowell. Is this, like, I know that it says on the agreement that's attached to the agenda, can enable the user to edit assignments using the edit and update feature. So, like, for things like that, siblings, like, I assume siblings, since they're coming from the same address, would be similar. But we had also talked about the potential for working groups from different schools to have some sort of say in where some of these families are going. I don't know if that's, Matt, what you were, or maybe I misunderstood.
So the working group is more around the continuity of care. How are we going to receive students and families at each campus? What are some of the expectations? How are we welcoming folks? And then what are some of the other considerations that the receiving school will need in order to receive students? And so looking at it from that perspective. In terms of the assignment process, looking at the inputs and then cross-referencing that with our enrollment data with our student information system in order to make sure that those pieces line up. And so the GIS system will help us to plan for where students go. It actually is not, it doesn't automatically assign them in the system.
Thank you.
Right, yeah, that's a good question. The computer just kind of shows what those optimal assignments might look like. I don't run it myself. This is just a tool for the administration team to actually utilize. I'll just be supporting them on a Zoom call. And and to answer the question before, right, yeah, you would never just trust what the computer says about this assignment, and these students in this neighborhood will go to this school, and this one go to the other, because the computer really isn't going to care if like 3 students, say, at a cul-de-sac goes to one school and the fourth person in a cul-de-sac, say, goes to another school. I like saying it's a science and an art. You want to have that human person in the loop, looking at that, providing some quality assurance, so we're very, very thoughtful and the objectives are met.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm not sure, Dr. McDowell, if this will be for you or Beth Ann. Can you just tell us a little bit about the system we use now to do this job?
Going to embarrass the district now. No, it's very antiquated. We have literally photographic maps, kind of like what was on the slide of like Haddon Township, but like blown out with like names of the schools kind of plopped where they are. And then there's a list of basically typed out like street addresses, and like if you live in this area, you go here, and it's kind of done by hand by the attendance person in the board office, the person registering. In a lot of cases, though, where it gets messy for us is with having such small elementary schools. Let's say, happens every year, school's already started, and then we get an influx of people. Zane is full. Okay, great. Now where do we put them? So then we've got to call all the principals, to see how many spots are available for that child of a certain grade level. So in a lot of cases, we're placing kids that live in the Zane catchment. They're going to, I want to say Newbie. Or actually, it depends, but wherever there's a seat in that particular grade level is where they wind up going. So it's not always an automatic, like we can tell the parent that day, oh, this is where your child's going to go. Sometimes it's like, let's get the information, we'll contact the principal, we'll get back to you. So, in a nutshell, did I Hopefully I characterized it correctly. It's not, it hasn't been a very perfect system.
How long would you estimate it takes to do that if you had to put hours on?
Couple hours? I mean, it depends. It gets trickier if the child has an IEP or they have a physical handicap, then there's only like 2 buildings they can go to, so then we have to involve the principal to make sure that they can accommodate the child. So depending on the situation, sometimes it's like they come in, they register, they know the next day. Sometimes they come in on Thursday, maybe it's Monday. Sometimes we have 2 principals trying to figure out which one can accommodate.
I guess then with what we're going to have to do now, though, like with Garfield and reassigning kids, like how, if we went with our current approach, how long would that take versus using this? I think that's what I'm trying to get around, is how much time would this save us?
A couple of weeks. Because it would be a manual student-by-student process, parallel to everybody already doing their other work. And so we don't have an individual that just sits and this is all that they do all day. And so it would take a couple weeks.
And it's not a perfect, I would be worried about family-specific, you know, with us rushing to get it done. I would want to make sure that it's correct.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding that we're looking to pay $5,000 and then $5 per student, essentially for a software platform to support work that I think we've articulated is in progress. So maybe I'm still trying to figure out the timing of this, and what just seems a little hard for me to square, because on the road we've been saying these are all the things we're accounting for. We're already in progress with doing these assignments and assignments, so maybe I'm not appreciating the need to go into a modernized system right now when we have
I can
several
help
families asking.
square that.
Okay.
In balancing this budget, we've eliminated a person out of the board office. So the person that would be responsible for doing this, that position has been eliminated and combined with my retiring administrative assistant. So we will not have a full-time person with where this is basically half of their job. So having an automated system would, A, make it quicker, and we could have 1 or 2 people in the board office with the software that could do this versus one person who has been dedicated for at least half of her FTE to do this. That position's been eliminated, so.
So I guess we probably should
Or will
lead
be.
with the half an FTE that supported enrollment and catchment and class assignments is no longer filled at a position.
Right.
And so we're looking to augment that half an FTE salary with an investment in technology. Is that what I should understand?
Well,
Did we
it's-
see an FTE 0.5 reduction for this investment in technology, I guess is what I'm asking. Are we gonna, right, are we able to balance it in that way? Because that's just how it was described.
Real quick, is this like a one and done payment, or is this a subscription
it's
model?
It's an
Is this
annual.
It's an annual,
I guess I'm really confused about what the confusion is. So it's $5,000 for this first year. Then in the following years, it'd be $10,000 per year to run this type of work, right? I mean, when we talk about like a modern system, this is, I mean, sorry, I don't want to like offend your company, right? But this isn't even like a modern system. This is just like, this is like a system, right? Whereas before we were literally using pieces of paper to try to, and like rulers, I'm assuming, to try to like figure out where our students are. This is not to short sell your platform, but I'm just saying like it's like we're like going from the Stone Ages to, you know, the Bronze Age here, right? Like it's not like we're going to like
so I can appreciate that,
the
but
future.
I also want to just offer. We've been on the road bringing people along on having to reassign 113 students, and I would hope as a parent they are not hearing that we've been using paper and hope to get this right. Like we also have to really manage how this message is being heard. by our community and families who are anxiously awaiting this assignment. I get it. I
But
just think we have to square
guess
that.
So let me
People assume
interject.
we're kind of already doing this, to be
Let
honest.
me interject because I think that I want to make sure that we're not going down the rabbit hole. At the end of the day, a net loss of 33 positions means that without us acquiring systems and tools, the work does not get done. And so, at the end of the day, based on the complexity of what we believed we were facing, we started looking at multiple options for a system and then started sampling for proof of concept so that we would know what to make in terms of recommendation to the board, and so how we could actually inform families of what we were planning. If we have to do this manually,
Be a long
then
time.
it will take much longer, and what that means is there is a cost associated with that. And so what that could mean is that we shut down the office. We stop answering phone calls. I mean, we do all of these different things in order to make sure that we're actually able to deliver what we said we're able to deliver. Paired with, we need a more secure and verifiable way in order to make these decisions that is not solely dependent on one individual looking at multiple pieces of paper and then hoping that we get it right. Due to the complexity of not just the Garfield closure, but also kindergarten assignment. With us being able to scale up in the future of also using this for where do we put new programs, where do we have space within our buildings for additional services, like all of those core pieces. And so, yes, with the reduction of staffing, which we might see about a $50,000 savings that's being redirected into schools, we believe that a $5,000 ask was appropriate.
I appreciate that clarity, right? Like, that helps a lot. May I ask a question of what other districts are you working with?
So there's just the one, Haddonfield is the one paying district now. But however, I've helped many districts. The New England School District, we had that originally in this slide deck. Berwick School District, when they came, one of the poorest districts in Pennsylvania, used this program to see where those students would go when they closed an elementary school. And several others to show, what the value could be by just using some modern technology to assign students, how much closer students would be, the net savings, estimated savings for transportation, of course, as well as some key metrics for the board.
So I guess you have one paying district, and then how many other districts have used this to success to like proof of concept? It sounds like you have some that are proof of concept mode. So
Right,
how
yes.
many would that be? 5 or 6?
3 others.
3 others?
This technology is new, right? It's new, but it's the only way you're ever going to be able to objectively assign students equitably and efficiently.
So,
Can I ask a clarifying question? I'm sorry, Roger. Go-
well, I was going to mention about the software piece, and this is actually building these type of applications is actually the type of work that I do for a living, and I will put this out there: $5,000 for a year for this type of software is extraordinarily reasonable, because you have to not only do you need to have the people who understand the API calls, you have to understand the different data sources you're going in. You have to be able to store the data securely. You have to be able to maintain uptime on the application. You have to have content area expertise. Like, all of these type of things, like, I'm not gonna lie, when I saw $5,000, I was actually surprised. That's why I asked about what's the follow-up cost there, right? I expect, again, this is not to say raise your prices, but I'm saying that when you said 10,000, I was like, oh, is it 5,000, and then we're going up to like 50,000 in the future, right? So my point there being that, like, for this type of application, I'm telling the board here, this is a very reasonable price. And if you were to, like, I think most people who think schools, like what schools do when they assign kids to schools, like most of us probably think that, yes, schools go and look at walking distance, right? But like that costs money to get. And I bet you most small districts don't. And so, again, my point being that I absolutely agree with what Mr. McKinsey is saying about how you need this type of data in order to be able to assign students more accurately.
So let me add a little additional complexity. And so initially, I put this call out to all of the superintendents in Camden County. And so all of the superintendents in Camden County, there are 39 of us. We are all on text chains, and we have weekly conversations about a myriad of topics. And so when I put the call out about how were districts doing this, Haddon answered the call. And so I went over to Haddon Township. They demoed their system for me, and they introduced me to Matt's company. We also got other vendors with existing products with companies that we already do business with. And no, Matt, I'm not advocating for you to increase your prices, but in terms of the actual cost of acquisition and ongoing maintenance, some of the other companies were quadruple the price just for the setup fees. That didn't include the annual subscription.
So I have a couple of questions for you. My first question is, during your presentation, you were talking about how, if I understood you correctly, that you find out through the process of going through this from year to year that kids are not necessarily where they need to be. Is there a process to which you see us moving kids around from year to year?
So good question. Yeah, so we're just focusing on new students, just the new students as they register. And throughout the year, like every month, we're going to be updating this, and so it's continuous. And will be a tool that'll be live for the administrators to always look at the new students registering where they should go. So it's new students. Unless you close a school or build a new school, there's really no need to redistrict anywhere anymore with this program. This is the only program out there. Dr. McDowell probably saw there's lots of several companies that provide redistricting software where I believe, in my opinion, it's the height of hubris to say for the next 5 or 6 years, these are the borders where students on this side of the street or this numbered house or higher should go to that school. It's not the way to solve this problem. You have to look at where students are, where their individual needs are, and only our program would enable that.
Sure, I can appreciate all that. I mean, right now we're facing a huge budget crisis, so swallowing this financially is a little bit of an issue for our community, I think, as well as for some of us. But I see the benefit. Just right now is a little bit difficult time to be talking about this, even though I see the circumstances we're in. My other question is, how many years do you see yourself with us doing this? So it's 5,000 this year, and then 10,000 from here on after, until when?
So great question. So there's not going to be a certain amount of years obligation. It's just every year it could be stopped at any time.
And sorry, just to clarify, was it 10,000 or was it $5 per student? It's 5 per student?
So it's okay. So it's $5,000 for now through the end of next June, June 30th.
Was it $5 a student after that?
And then after that, I would like to get, we'll
Yeah.
negotiate this. We'll talk about this depending on your needs and what you're able to do.
And that would just be elementary students, right? Because we wouldn't need this for the middle or high school?
That's my question.
It has-
The middle and high school is one building, so we don't need.
It has capacity district-wide, and so I think one of the things that working with a smaller company allows us to do is it allows us to customize based on our needs. A lot of your larger entities, there are tens of thousands of dollars in setup fees every time you want to make a module change. Whereas with a smaller organization, a local organization allows us to be more flexible and to work in partnership.
I have a question about what Beth Ann said about once school begins and we have an influx of students and figuring out where they're going to go. Obviously, that could lead to some additional stress at the beginning of the year. How would your system provide a better pathway than somebody at our district level picking up the phone and finding out who has room in their school for a new student? You know what I mean? So like in how would your program help us
Because we would
do that more efficiently?
Well, yeah, like we would have, like you wouldn't have to send it to somebody with Mark's company or Matt's company who's then doing it. It's like we have the program
So
and we can see we see who has the openings at which schools, and then can make that decision.
So I guess let's make sure so we're $5,000, and I'd hope that given that others have had a proof of concept year, I would love some grace in that approach, because I'm still trying to understand, are we essentially gonna run this for every elementary school student and possibly recast where they are today based on the software, where the selling point and value of this software was that it smoothed out and redistributed students, which is not what we're doing for all schools. So I do wanna understand. We have one that is getting absorbed. We have kindergarten classes, happens every year. The value proposition is all students can be rebalanced and redistributed. As a parent who has one that's super close and almost the second furthest, I understand, but it's for a reason, right? It is, and so I wanna appreciate, are you selling us a product that we, based on needs today, only need to understand how to move students from this one to all of the others versus looking at our entire elementary school catchment logic and recasting where everybody goes? I'm just trying to understand our intent beyond just these two initial opportunities. Are we really opening up to full recatchment, which is the opportunity that is presented in these slides as the return on our investment?
So one of the things that we asked for Matt to share with the board was the capability of the solution. And so for the purpose of today and the purpose of the next 60 days, we need assistance with the Garfield school closure, kindergarten registration. When we start moving into the summer, we would be using it for the purpose of whenever we have young people moving in, there are monthly uploads of the data to make sure that we're keeping correct inventory on where young people are, to be able to make informed decisions about where students get assigned when they come in. Should the board decide to take on the topic of redistricting, this program has the capability of doing that. And so it also builds capacity for future discussion should the board decide that's the direction they want to go.
So I guess,
I was gonna ask if, like a stipend opportunity for an existing employee was explored, somebody who would do this work in this time crunch instead of doing a program, getting somebody who knows our students and knows our schools and asking them to put in a little bit of extra work for a stipend.
Due to the complexity of the work, we wouldn't have a regular employee do this. The technical skills required to do this are pretty sophisticated. None of our administrators have the skills to be able to do this type of work. And based on the current contractual rates, it would probably significantly exceed $5,000. Matt, that is not a reason for you to increase your rates for the promo.
If I was able to ask a question, I would ask, like, I wish you told me those prices before I committed to coming up. Now, I'm happy to help. Look, I'm basically, I maybe shouldn't be telling you this stuff, but I'm basically running a charity here. This is costing me money. I'm paying an analyst to do this for you. I'm thrilled to be able to help you guys out. I drove around the school district today. You need some help, and I can help you. And I believe I'm the only one that can.
I guess I'm just struggling from the point of view of outsourcing decisions that I feel should be Collingswood decisions. And I understand that there'll be a level of like review, but that's like what I'm struggling with, is that we're telling a community that we're closing their school, and that we're outsourcing the decision of where to send their students. And
But it's not the decision that is being, this company's not making the decision. The decision, this presents information. The decision is made by the administrative team of the
Okay.
district. So that's, and I think that's really important. Hopefully the public hears that. It is not.
That's fine. You can give me
it's-
clarity without
I know, but I'm saying,
hollering
like,
at
it's
me.
not, I really want to make sure that that's clear, because there's a lot of misinformation floating around. This would, as Dr. McDowell stated, this would present us information quickly, accurately, and in real time. And as someone who also works in a district who is looking at potentially consolidating or regionalizing, This cost is a bargain to do this kind of work. Administrators, are so overwhelmed with the nightmare that is the beginning of the school year and the summer cleanup. To have a system like this that then just presents everything quickly is huge. So I think it's important to understand that this is not making decisions, this is presenting data accurately. And we're in a district that already, sends kids to this, 28% as of 2 years ago of our students were not going to the school closest to them. So we already have something that needs to be reevaluated anyway. This would be a great opportunity.
Would this be able to accelerate the time frame for sharing where people will go? Right, like if we're gonna have a speed to impact, right? I think how we framed hey, we are saving on the people. The people power no longer exists. You need a system just like you need any other program and software. We are asking to invest in a software to replace $50,000 of people power we don't have today. That helps, and will the decisions be made faster, right? So once you get the information from the software, will families know sooner where their potential placements are? Because I think that there has to be a balance here, is accelerating decisions and information sharing is the only way that we probably can square some of, I get it, but I think the timing just is a little deeply unfortunate. So is that possible? Can this be done? Can families know their placement by the 1st instead of the 8th? Or, right, that's what
No, and so the original date was established by the school. The school asked for us to wait until the 8th because there was some culture and some community building work that they wanted to do. And so that's the reason why the 8th was selected. And so in the long term, in answer to your original question, does this shorten the window of decision making? Absolutely, because it reduces the labor-intensive nature of a historically manual process that has been manual for about 25 years. And so we're not even stepping into 2026, we're stepping into 2010.
How much does,
I mean, this is not an immediate, but a potential down the road thing, given conversations that we've been having about regionalization. Would this help us to either plot out or have some information about where distribution of kids might end up if we did regionalize with other districts?
Matt, you want to answer that?
So that's a great question. So I'm having a very serious, in-depth conversations now with the state of Vermont. Vermont is going through a process now where they want to combine many school districts. And this is the tool that's going to allow them to save money and do it quickly and efficiently and objectively and equitably. So I think only a program like this would allow you to proactively, in real time, with the actionable information, assign those students. But really, Dr. Fizzacaro next door at Haddon Township, what he really likes this program best for is the strategic planning aspects of it. We're able to model things and tell stories and download data and compile that data for you, along with some really good maps to show you what these things would look like.
So you're working in Haddon Township and Haddonfield? Just
Haddon Township,
okay.
sorry, did I say Haddonfield?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my cousins went to Haddonfield, and my uncle was a firefighter there for a long time.
When you say that the state of Vermont is looking to regionalize, so that's coming from that state's Department of Education?
Hopefully I'm not talking out of school here, literally within a school. But
Well, I mean,
their whole government is looking right now, Act 73. If you're curious to see how this is done and how it's done well, no state in the country has a handle on the right number of students per school district on average. And Vermont is being very, very progressive, and they see the costs. Right now, they're the second highest cost in the nation, cost per student, about $27,000 per year per student, second only to New York State. And the reason for that is the very small school districts and the inefficient way that they're assigning students.
Oh, sure. No, I just wanted to clarify, because New Jersey is not there yet, so.
Yes, I've been trying to convince.
so I guess I'd like to revisit the framing of this, because I think there's a lot coming at us as a board, and so just making sure that we understand what's going on here. So essentially, for our consideration as a board, what we're seeing is basically that regarding currently the next coming year, when it comes to the students at Garfield who are going to be placed at other schools, the promise has been made that families will find out by May 8th. And so today, the district has put forth a plan in front of the board to help make sure that that gets done on time. Is that correct? Okay, so this is part of that plan. At the same time, I see in the personnel committee section that there is a resolution up that for the board to consider, which is to eliminate a position in the board office for that typically does this type of work, correct? So essentially, the proposal in front of us is partly to find cost savings in some place, while also bring in a tool that will enable us to get the placements done within the time period that we have promised families.
Yeah, so this is to present a software that has already, there is a recommendation for how to balance and create the space to pay for. I think the framing, Roger, to your point, is really helpful to connect those two things, because without it, it just is plus instead of actually savings in the aggregate, presumably, so.
Are you saying that the promise that we made to families to have their placements by May 8th, if we don't hire this program, that deadline is not going to be met?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we will deliver on the promise to our families. How we do it also matters, and how we're building capacity for the next project also matters. And so yes, come hell or high water, we will make sure that our families get what we promised for May 8th. But we're also looking at beyond just May 8th. There's other projects that need to be done. There will be ongoing work that needs to be done, and we're going to need help. That's the bottom line. We need help.
Just one other question. Do we anticipate actually needing the annual expense for several years? Right, because I think to some extent, after this initial upstart, it's kindergarten. So I'm just trying to think through, is it really 5, because I think we're saying 5 per total student base, but it may only just be kindergarten, if that. So I'm just really also trying to maintain that the line item could be up to 10,000 or far less. And possibly, I'm just trying to confirm, what are we also approving to maintain going forward is really the question. Are we saying for the next 5 years? I just want to.
Isn't it, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that it could be renewed on an annual basis, so it's something that could be reviewed year by year.
Yes.
Yeah, so
So-
it doesn't have to be like, oh, we need it for the next 5 years, but like, if next year's budget is gonna be just as tight as this one, like, we're gonna continue to have questions about consolidation and eventually regionalization. And a tool like this, at the cost, 10 grand is more than 5 grand, but.
No, that wasn't
Like,
my
yeah.
point, really. It was just
But
how
like,
long do
as
we
an
anticipate keeping it?
annual, I mean, if you can renew it annually, I think it'd be worth it, right?
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. I'm actually asking, are we really thinking annually is about kindergarten or annually is about the entirety of our student body? It should be based on need, strategic long-term planning, but I'm actually asking because we floated out a 10,000 figure, which doesn't square to kindergarten. So anywhere between K to the whole district, presumably, could be in the annual renewal
I
rate.
think that we should be thinking about what are our short-term needs and what are our long-term needs,
That's why I'm asking.
without a long-term plan for infrastructure. The bottom line is that the way that schools are built, funded, and operated, we don't adhere to any of those rules and standards and regulations, which is why we're having such difficult financial challenges. They don't build small schools anymore because they're not efficient. The system and the structures needed for us to be able to successfully even have planning conversations about long-term strategic infrastructure, we need tools that can be trusted, that will give us really tangible, ongoing, real-time data. And so I think that if the board is interested in topics like regionalization, topics like infrastructure, I want to plant the seed and forecast on the positive side a future partnership with the borough in terms of the master planning process, which is looking at urban development, borough and district-wide in unison. We're going to need tools to help us to have those discussions.
Yeah, and sorry, I was asking to balance that often at this table, we say, well, we have this line item, I don't want to revisit this, like, hey, we decided and now we're carrying it over. There's a reason, so that we can plan, because of several, I think every meeting we've had, families are expecting more long-term planning. So I'm actually trying to make sure that we are intentional about this is the beginning and supporting our long-term growth and expansion of our district. I'm not saying it's too much or too high, I'm just trying to give guardrails of what it could potentially be going forward. That is why I mentioned
We
it.
believe this gives the board significant flexibility in their decision-making process. And so that's really our crux, is to be able to give the board just options to be able to consider for the future.
So thank you so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry for the back and forth conversations with all of us. This is a lot to consider. I do have one question regarding your cost. And like Zakia mentioned, are you flexible on cost at all? I know that that's not the general topic of this
I can
conversation,
tell
but
you-
when you come into the future, like, are you saying that my price point is $5,000 for this year, and then no matter what, every year thereafter, I am charging you $5 per student for the total enrollment of your district, or do you break it down by what is needed?
I'll tell you, I'm very, very flexible. You'll have many options.
Fred, can I just ask a clarifying question? You had said that the May 8th date was at the request of the school. Can you just explain what that meant? Like, which school? Or are you saying Garfield or?
Garfield. The principal asked for us to
Garfield principal
wait.
asked for
Yes.
May 8th? Okay.
Yes.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Okay, so we are going to move on to, well, we're going to skip over section 4 because I believe that budget presentation is happening next week and not tonight, right? Okay, all right. And then just, I always say, take a look at the future dates and miscellaneous information to see if there's anything that you need to put on your calendar. And then we'll do section 6 at the next meeting also when we're voting, I presume. And then we do not have student reports tonight.
Kelly, quick question. Is the next roundtable on here on the 7th? Because I know there were some concerns about advertising.
That's a great question, Sarah.
I don't see it on the one online.
Yes, thank you for calling that out. Yeah.
And like, I know there was like some feedback about being able to better promote that. Like,
I think timing didn't help us, but yeah, we need to make sure we do the pushes we did before. Because of a spring break, it kind of didn't help.
Yeah, I mean, our first one, we went out and we talked to the
Right.
PTs and we asked the borough to, but then everything got messed up when we had to reschedule. So we're going to make a better effort of doing that.
Just,
So
like, promoting
can
the
we
hell
make
out of
sure
it
that
at the
that
next
goes on?
meeting, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, already done. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. Okay, so no students. Our superintendent's report is going to be next week too. All right. So the public comment section is for the regular Board of Education meeting, which is happening on April 29th. There will be a second public comment section for you to come up and talk today at the end of the meeting if you so choose to do so. So we're going to move on to section 10, annual appointments and approvals. And I believe, Ms. Coleman, I'll pass that on to you.
Yes, that is me. The next, you're going to hear me talking for quite a while. So I can go item by item, or I can go item by item next week. But this is the rest of our annual reorg meeting. So this is the meeting where we do all of our annual appointments. I can go line by line, but pretty much everything is exactly the same as last year with the exception of the substitute rates in item 10.30. Those rates have been updated and increased accordingly. And I believe there was one other change. Hold on a second. Athletic, we did not change that rate. That comes from the athletic department. Oh, the official notification in item 10.06, we have, to be in accordance with the new law, we listed our website. This is where we have to list the papers we advertise in. Now the new law, we have to link everything to our public website. So with everybody's approval, I'll just, next week I'll go line by line by line by line, but this is just where we approve everything, and there's literally been no change from last year with any of those items. Going down into,
Beth Ann, with that, and
Yes.
you go out for RFPs for each of those, and then?
yes,
or-
so the very first item, item 10.01, we did go out for RFPs. And if there should be there is an attachment, and you'll see the 4 RFP evaluations attached that we received and reviewed the RFPs. Okay. Okay. So in section 11, 11.01 is your March 2026 monthly transfer report. 11.02 is your March 2026 monthly financial statements, your cash report, your cash flow analyses, and balance sheets. So if you have any questions on any of the financial statements, please feel free to let me know. 11.03 is your student activity cash report. 11.04 is your food service financial statement. We are still working on items 11.05 and 11.06. So I will caution everybody, this is a big agenda, so we're still working on it, probably going to be working on it through Sunday, Monday. So just kind of FYI on all this, but, all right, so hopping down into item 12, buildings and grounds and finance. Items 12.01 through 12.08 are all those items that I just mentioned. And then I'm going to get into the meat of the agenda. 12.09 is, we did hear back from the County Office of Education, and they did approve our 2026-2027 budget. So the resolution is attached here, and the budget would now be final as presented. We answered all of their questions. Item 12.10 is the official resolution to close Garfield. I know there's lots of questions. Only a Board of Ed can close a school. So I wrote this resolution, hopefully answering all of the questions, because once we approve the resolution, it's got to go to the county office. It has to go to the Department of Ed, Office of Facilities. So I tried to answer all of the questions I thought they might want to know within the resolution itself. The very last line of the resolution, I did add, be it further resolved that the Board of Ed also authorizes Garrison Architects to amend our long-range facility plan to include the closure of Garfield. So we will have to remove that building from our facility listing. So take a look at that resolution. We looked at it today as an admin team just to make sure that I hit on all the right verbiage, but we've been talking about this for quite a while. But you guys want me to pause while you guys are reading it? I just want to make sure I hit on all of the. We were going to add a little snarky line, like, whereas the state of New Jersey fails to fund schools adequately, we therefore, but I figured, well, but then I was going to test it and be like, well, let's see if they actually read what I send them. But we
Definitely
didn't.
should have done that.
I decided to be mature and like maybe not do it, but I was thinking of doing that, but.
I think I can probably speak for all of us and say we would have appreciated that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
This might be a dumb question.
No, no,
With,
dumb.
with the budget that was approved, the one that was sent and was approved, did that didn't include language about the closure of a school, or that just was the numbers, like yours?
It was the numbers.
Okay.
It was in some of the Q&A that went back and forth to the county superintendent. She is aware that included in this building, because they did ask, we see
Okay.
that this line item decreased, and we see
And
that,
so the
so
county
we
is
answer-
aware.
They are aware.
Okay.
The resolution, obviously, will memorialize it. So then what we have to do after we pass this resolution, a letter has to go to the county superintendent, drafted by the superintendent, including this resolution. That also has to go to the Office of Facilities. So we have to, tell a couple people, Office of Facilities, we can't do anything with the site, even though it's our building, we still need approval from them to close it. So I would need a letter back from them saying the Department of Ed has reviewed your application to close the school and they accept it.
Were
So-
there, were there any, like, concerns from the county about the closure of a school? Like, they didn't say, like, or besides just, like, you have to give a resolution, you have to make
Yeah.
it official?
Nothing more than like the obvious, like they understand, you know, they don't like it, but they understand there's a lot of districts in Camden County that are really struggling this year, so, they get it. They just wanted to make sure, that we were following our process. With them, it all comes back to, did you follow the process? So this is be step one in the process. All right, so if everybody's okay with the wording on that, the next item, item 12.11, is just memorializing our approved tuition rates for our send receive agreements and any other miscellaneous tuition pupils that pop into the district. Item 12.12, we were notified by the Department of Ed that we are eligible for $3,256.80 to for our water fountains and their refillable bottle stations for the filters. So Mr. Longo and I are working on getting us that money back. Item 12.13 is the contract with the gentleman who just presented for $5,000 through June of next school year. Item 14 is a renewal of the contract with NutriServe Food Service Management Company. This will be year 3 of a potential 5-year agreement with them for our food service operations. Yep. Yes,
Bethany,
ma'am.
would you prefer questions at the end, or
Oh, no, you
as
can,
we go?
you can
Okay.
stop me, it's fine.
So the approval for the FAST program through June 30th next year.
Yes.
Typically, when does the process for assigning kindergarten begin?
Yeah.
Good evening. Is it okay with you? Good evening, everybody. Kindergarten registration opens in. Sorry. Am I okay? Yeah. Oh. Kindergarten registration opens in the spring of every year. It is open now, and kindergarten building assignments occur mid-July every summer.
All right, item 12.15 is just our annual approval for Phoenix Advisors. They're our bond financial advisors. They make sure that I file all of the appropriate documentation with the bond holding companies in New York and make sure that our audit's prepared correctly. Item 12.16 is an agreement with Gloucester County Special Services School District. So for any child that we send there, they obviously have a tuition rate and then they have an added district fee, but there also is a list of other fees for related services that might be provided to the children. So that's just their fee schedule for 26-27. 12.17 is we have a couple homeless children. So this is approving an agreement between Collingswood and Gloucester City for those children that have domiciled in Collingswood. Living in Collingswood, attending school in Gloucester City. 12.18. Sorry, it's taking a while for my computer. There we go. We are happy to accept a donation of $1,000 from Mr. and Mrs. Kyle Chang for the special education program. So we thank you very much. Item 12.19. Come on, computer. Yeah, it's like, it's all right. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it crashed earlier. We were all in the same room going through the agenda and it crashed on me, so I'm going to use the paper. 12.19 is just our shared maintenance agreement with Mount Ephraim. This is on one of the as-needed custodial maintenance agreements. They finally approved it and sent it back. The next few are use of facilities. The first one, item 1220, is, I said it wrong today, I said Sound of Music. It's Sound Music. They request usually every spring to use our middle school auditorium for their spring recital. And they are paying us a fee of $330. Item 12.21, another use of facilities. This is for Mr. Softy for the 4th of July. So for the Collingswood 4th of July, they're going to be, they're paying us a fee of $200 to set up for the 4th of July. 12.22 is our annual approval of the Collingswood Book Festival. It's going to be on October 3rd. Oh, it finally just refreshed. Look at that. 12.23, another 4th of July use of facility request is for Kona Ice. And then the last one, approving the borough to use our football field to shoot off their fireworks for the 4th of July celebration. So that's everything under facilities and finance. With permission, I'm going to jump. You want me to go to personnel? And then I'll go back to Meredith while I have the microphone?
Is that okay with everybody? Yeah? Okay. All right. That's fine.
Get used to listen to me speak. Okay, so obviously a lot, and I appreciate everybody's patience as we're building this agenda. So item 14, item 14.01 is going to be a list of the subs. 1402, travel expense form. 1403 is that, come on, good Lord. Yeah, that's, oh, come on, is the elimination of the attendance secretary that I spoke about earlier in the evening. There it goes. And then we have.
Can I stop you for a second? When you
Yeah.
say eliminating the attendance secretary, can you see yourself needing, like, if we recover financially or have some sort of revenue, do you see yourself bringing that position back into play
No.
at some point in time? Okay.
Again, this came about after. Yeah, this came about after the last board meeting. My secretary's retiring. And I sat with my staff and we had decided that in the best interest and to put a good foot forward to the community, we would not be refilling my administrative assistant. And she does a lot. So we sat as a team and we divvied up her job duties and eliminated a position that other people in the office knew how to do. So now everybody's taken pieces of this job. It's going to be a tough year, but it's not the kind of budget situation where if somebody's leaving voluntarily, you kind of have to take that opportunity to go through attrition and try to save money where you can. So we did make that decision. So included with the abolishment of that position is I revised 3 job descriptions of people in my office where they've taken on additional duties. So included with the elimination of that position is we're changing these 3 job descriptions to include stuff they didn't do before. So that's what that item is. 14.04 through 6 are resignations, regrettably. 4.07 through 09 are revised FMLA paperworks. 14.10 is an employee going out on paid medical leave. 14.11 is approving a substitute replacement for Collingswood Middle School. 14.12 is another substitute replacement teacher at the middle school. 14.13 is approving a permanent sub for the high school. 14.14 is it's a German student. It's approving a German student volunteer in observation. 14.15 it's approving the Mark Newby Enrichment Club. 14.16 is summer hours for the counseling over the high school. 14.17 is counseling summer hours for our middle school counseling staff. And then, although blank, we did leave holding things in here. So items 14.18 through, bear with me, 4.4 is going to be lists of staff. So we're still building those lists. Still building those lists, obviously based because of everything was going on with the budget. So between now and next week, these will be populated with staff, their names. I put them on here just so as a holding pattern. You know, it's being worked on. We've been sequestered in the superintendent's office for the last few days, finalizing the list. So obviously there will be names on here for next week, but I didn't want it to go unnoticed, or
So
at least you know it's being worked on.
are these, I know we usually have a meeting to say who we're bringing back and voting on that. Is that's happening on Okay, so are all of the staff going to get, that are going to be affected by this? They're all
Yes.
going to have their notices on
Yep.
time? We're not going to have to, I
Correct.
know last year, I think we had to, or 2 years ago, we had to reschedule the meeting, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
late, we
they're
had
all
a
gonna-
special meeting last
okay.
year. Yeah, that's why we've,
So we're
Meredith,
gonna let them know
Dana, myself, and
before-
Fred have been sequestered in Fred's office all week to make sure that
Okay.
we meet the deadline for next
So
week.
even though the date that we have to give them is May 15th, we're doing this sooner, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So, yes, everybody will have what they need.
And-
But I wanted to at least have these on here so you know that they're being worked on, and they will be populated in time for the meeting.
I did want to say, Ms. Coleman, I appreciate that you're a rebalancing of work and being part of the solution to create capacity in our budget, because I think there's been a lot of questions about roles, and I really just appreciate that I appreciate the impact and support of us getting there, so thank you for that.
No, of course, and again, I asked them, and I told them, I said, if any one of you say no, then the dominoes fall, and then we would have to fill a position. And they understand. They read the papers, and they listen to the board meetings. So they understand what we're going through. So, and that is it for me.
Oh, sorry, that was it, okay. So just a clarifying question. So the information about the positions and everything, are we going to get that information prior to next week's meeting? So that we have time to.
Yes, staff
talk and
first.
think and
This agenda
get
will
ready to
go
vote?
live. You'll have it before the meeting. We just want to make sure we have time to do a final go through with the list, and meet with the staff and provide the letters and do all the notifications that are required.
Speaking of the agenda, I just want to say that I appreciate you listening to all of our concerns and asking us, having us ask to put the agenda up earlier so that we had a chance to review it, and we appreciate that you made a very big effort to do that. Thank you.
That is it for me speaking. I'm going to pop up to Meredith. Roger, you have a question?
Yeah, I guess because your sections kind of go together in terms of the budget thing. I wonder if it makes sense for us to like stop and as a board and talk about the budget pieces as a whole now before moving on to the curriculum stuff. So I think one thing, understanding that there's definitely still confidentiality at play in terms of, what the final, who may be, what positions are being cut, et cetera, stuff like that. I know that back in February we were told it was something like 20, 25 positions were being riffed. Do we have a closer estimate of just the total number of positions being riffed at this point?
It's 33 positions. It's 25 people.
And are those balanced, already accounted for resignations or retirements?
Yes. Yes.
What I had included, I forgot under my discussion. You even reminded me today, and I forgot again. I apologize. It's one of those weeks. Under my
Maybe it was
discussion,
coming up somewhere else.
I would be remiss, and I'm just going to place this here, and then we can talk. Based on everything that's going on with the budgets, and we do have the opportunity, I said it last year, Roger has said it, to go out for operational referendum. So I'm just going to put it on the table for everybody to talk about, but I would be remiss because I've been very public, I don't have another school that we can close next year, right? Like that's a one-time rabbit out of a hat situation. We can't do this again next year. So we would be remiss if we didn't consider and fully vet the idea of going for an operational referendum. We can go in September. If it fails in December, we can go, or September. There's a general election in November. Then you got December, January, March. So I think this group really, we should start the discussion, and it may even be a good idea to have it like as an ongoing discussion item on every agenda until everybody feels that they've been heard and we've fully vetted the idea. But we really need to right-size this ship. And if the community is no, 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 and we've asked them 5 times and 5 times it's no, then our marching orders are clear. But I think we would be remiss to not try to ask and do the right thing for the kids. So I'm just going to put this here, and I'm going to turn off my microphone and let you guys talk about it.
Do you mind if I guess ask a question before we go on to the operating referendum question, which is just about the current budget? I know that there were some no votes last time. There seems to be some questions about the budget still. I just wanted to make sure us as a board, we've had the we take this chance right now. Knowing that next week we have to vote on the budget, right? And knowing that if we as a board don't pass the budget, that means essentially the state will come in and will decide our budget.
Let me provide some clarity. The budget, the financial allocation for the budget is approved. The board is not voting on the actual financial part of the budget. The board is voting on the allocation of how the funds are being allocated as it relates to budget, but the budget is already approved.
Right. So that allocation piece, right? And my point being that we are still voting next week on that final allocation piece, and that's something that as a board we need to pass, and understand that's something that we need to pass, or else we'll be abdicating our authority to the state. I want to make sure that all of us, board members wise, we have an opportunity right now. Are there board members here who have questions about the budget, have reasons why they may vote no, or believe that we should vote no on this budget? And if so, I think that that should be brought up now and discussed now in committee of whole, so that if there are questions or answers that need to be provided, they can be provided before the official vote happens next week. So right now, just asking right now, who has questions, what concerns, what needs to be addressed?
Well, I think that this is an excellent time to have those discussions, and I think we've already had some good discussions, but we also do not have all the information yet, right? So, I think we can have some conversations now, absolutely, but understandably, you have a lot on your plates, you're still working on it, and, we don't have the final information about the allocation of positions, Roger, right? So I don't think all questions can be answered right now, but I think I agree that this is a time to have discussion.
So the question you're waiting for is the allocation. So you're waiting for the specific people who are being riffed. That's the data point that's needed to decide your vote.
Can
Yes.
I just ask a clarifying question real quick? The 33 people, positions, I'm sorry, the 33 positions, thank you for clarifying that. Can you give us a number of what the total of that amounts to? Like, do you have a number, like if you add up all those 33 positions?
$3 million.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to make sure I'm really clear, because I believe section, all of 14 is listing all of the individuals who will be offered a contract. So I'm trying to be really precise in my language here, in that we do not manage the operation. So if the name is I guess I'm trying to understand, the agenda today is telling you how many positions are going to have a contract provided for the next school year. So I guess I'm really interested in the specific questions about positions, because as a board, we are not in the position of who is in that position. It is, do we agree that these are the positions that's the discussion. So maybe I want to just make sure that we're reading agenda 14 as what it is, which are all of the positions we are putting a contract for. So if there are questions, then this gives you that information. Just to make sure I'm really understanding and internalizing. This is the list of the who, of the positions. The who, is not within our.
Doesn't necessarily tell you where
But
right.
I guess I'm just trying to be really transparent that who is not necessarily driving our decision-making on the budget. So I want to make sure I'm deeply appreciating what the question is. If this list isn't sufficient, what is the question about the positions, so that we can be really clear and intentional in answering it? Because this is it. This is the list. And I guess as I looked at this list, and so I'll just offer a comment, it is deeply student-facing where it can be. You will see an elimination of a position to redirect funding to staff pointing and directed at students. So I just want to make sure that we are really intentional. This list is the clarity of the positions we are proceeding with for next year. So let's, if there's questions, please let's make sure we're talking about the list before us. Because the who, not that it is deeply relevant, but it is that is, the meat is all pretty much here.
Right, and maybe to piggyback on what you're saying, Ms. Devine, is for the question of like the specific cuts, right? What, you know, what information is needed to say for, you know, you, Ms. Mikulski, to vote yes or vote no? What information in those specific cuts is needed? Under what circumstances would you vote yes or would you vote no?
I just
Well,
want to
I'm not
preface this by
talking about-
saying
I'm not
that,
committing myself to a
yeah.
decision right now, Roger, okay?
yeah, I want to
I'm asking my
protect, I
questions.
don't want to necessarily ask people if they're going to vote yes or
Yeah,
vote no.
I-
I hear
I
that, I
don't
don't
think that's
necessarily think
appropriate.
that's what you're doing, but I
think
just
we,
want to
no,
cautious
that's
this.
actually absolutely what I'm doing. I think we absolutely should understand right now where we are. This is something that's done across boards everywhere, where there are straw polls asked about where we are, so that we can figure out what questions need to be answered, so that we're not left in situations where votes are done for information not being had. So
I
I'm
see your concern,
absolutely asking
Roger.
that.
I see your
can ask a
concern,
question.
Roger.
Do we have a list of, I see a list of the people that we're or the positions that we're keeping. Is there a list of positions that we are not keeping? I don't see that on the agenda, because yes, if you show me a list of positions that we're keeping and none of it is student facing, obviously I'm going to vote no. So if we have a list of the positions that we're eliminating, that it would help shape a vote. So I would like to see that. You know, if we want to hash this out, I'd like to see what positions that are losing all across the board, from the very top to the very bottom. That's what I would like to see, and I think that should be, because obviously we see, I don't care about the person, I do care about the people, but I don't care about the person. I want to see the positions that we're eliminating. So if we can be provided that list, that would be helpful.
We won't be providing that. What we can provide you is the breakdown of categories. For example, admin, aides, athletic salaries, CST, teachers. Like, we can give you the breakdown of the FTEs, but the individual positions, that's not something that we normally provide, because that happens, it starts at the school level, then it happens at the district level, and it's extremely intricate, and we're not going to be able to get all of that to you by the board meeting.
So can I just ask a
Now, we
question?
can get it to you later in terms of impact, but right now, our core responsibility is to make sure that all of the positions that are moving forward for the 26-27 school year, that we know all of those individuals, that we are primed to make sure that we can deliver on making sure that all of our staff are approved, get their contracts issued to them. All of our displaced staff can go through the process of selection for new positions, and that we can post the positions that are still left. And so there will be additional positions that are posted that will need to be filled. And so there's a lot of movement that needs to happen, and it's not that we don't want to give it, it's just we're not going to be in a position to be able to give that level of clarity by Thursday, because we're in the process of trying to get this agenda ready.
So just so I'm clear, I'm just going to I'm going to pick the first one on the first page I'm looking at. There are 6 administrative staff positions that are going to have an individual next to it. We don't have the ability to say there are 2 fewer than last year's list. That clarity we cannot offer by the time we have our discussion is what I'm. So let me just.
So the category we can give
Okay,
you
so
the category.
That's, I think what I'm hearing is like, hey, there's 6, we had 8 last year. I think. Okay.
We can send you that.
Thank you.
We can send you that.
I think.
So my next question is athletics. We talked about pay to play. What's that going to look like?
That has not been ironed out yet. I do know the value of the middle school athletics is $150,000. So what we have to do now is, obviously, Oakland sends to us for middle school. So we need to look at the number of, because Oakland pays for that. So I can't say with certainty what it's going to look like. I know it's going to be a typical, very close to what happens now with paying for athletics. Just for the middle school students, it's going to be a higher dollar amount than the average that you pay for, like, your family. We just haven't had time to do the paperwork for it yet. Because we have to, it's going to be a nightmare, but we have to back out the Oakland kids and then assess the rest of the costs to Collingswood,
We're
so I have to
looking
figure
at
out what that is.
Probably middle school is the only affected pay-to-play? Is that what we're thinking?
Middle school, right now, it looks, I'm probably gonna be full pay for middle school.
Full pay for middle school, okay.
Yeah.
And we just don't have
Because that was the
choices yet.
smallest nugget.
Yeah,
Middle,
okay.
middle school's about 150,000
Yeah,
for
and I think
sports
that's
and
what you had told us
extracurricular, and
last
it's a
week that
smaller
was being
group.
eliminated, so that
And
makes sense.
there's less kids from other communities.
Okay.
So, just for sake of, but we just have to work that out.
So is that something, because I just read today, NJ.com, Montclair, they just pulled all their parents together to
Yep.
do a boosters meeting because they're looking at cutting high school athletics. And I think they put their high school athletics at like 176,000 or something like that. I think that's the number, but I read
That's
it
really
much.
low.
Maybe I'm wrong. It was something, maybe that's
We're
what.
500,000 here, so if Montclair's
Maybe-
176.
Maybe it was something, that's what they needed to get from their boosters, and
maybe.
they had other means, but is that something then for middle school that booster groups could help to get that price down per kid?
1,000%.
Okay.
1,000%.
What mechanism would we have to use to do that? Is that just working within the current boosters to try to get that, and then have
Yeah.
that just apply?
Fundraise and, yeah, exactly,
Okay.
fundraise. I don't know if it's an official booster club and you need to register as a 50C3 or 501C3, or you just want to work within your current groups to fundraise. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to take a donation to keep the fee lower.
Did you say that our high schools, they have $1 million for sports? Is that what I just heard you say?
It's all in 1.2 million. If I take the middle school out, middle school's 150, so $1,050,000 is high school athletics and co-curricular. But the biggest nugget is athletics because their transportation alone is probably
That was gonna be my, is
300,
there anything
350.
with taking the transportation aspect out of it for middle school? Does that change anything? Like how much? I know that's.
No,
a
that's
pretty big-
including. That's
Well, no, I know that's a pretty big piece of it. So this would be pay to play, and there would be no transportation.
yeah, because the middle school the busing for middle school athletics is de minimis compared to the high school.
Sorry, just would continue with busing.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
So it's not that much of a cost when you're looking at the total cost of running one of those programs. Getting a bus for the middle school kids is not as.
It's not as bad
Okay.
as high school.
So the busing for the kids to play the sports that are going to pay to play is still going to be included? So the parents or the families are not going to have to pay for the transportation? Okay.
No.
So the sport, pay to play?
The families would have to pay for the transportation.
Be included in
Yeah.
the pay-to-play fee.
Right.
So if for soccer, you have to pay $300
It's exactly
per
as it is
kid,
now.
includes
So if you have
everything
kids
you
that
get
play
right now.
sports,
Right,
I know
okay.
like Maggie, like she signs her kids up every year. This process is going to be exactly, well, not, but the process we have now, it's already built in. We're just going to, for middle school specific, it's going to be a bigger payment because there's going to be less children. It's going to be
Maybe an
assessed.
easy way to think about it is, right, if saving us $150,000,
Right.
what that means is that the families of students who are participating in those programs will pay $150,000 total.
So is it the
Right, because
Collingswood
we are making
families
them pay for
or
that
the Oakland and Collingswood
It'll be
families?
Collingswood because Oakland
So I
pays a
just wanna
piece.
be
That's
really
why, like, I
clear.
need to, once the budget is settled, I then have to go into the tuition software and tweak out the percentage that Oakland pays for middle school athletics, so I'm not charging people twice.
So I'm just making sure that I'm truly understanding the impact, because as we've talked about enrollment and I look at our enrollment file, we want people to keep on coming. And so if we do not end up having enough to create teams and enough to balance the tuition that is being paid to us, do we have, I just am asking the question. I think it is going to be, this 150 will be essentially redistributed across our Collingswood families who choose to participate, and Oakland will participate because they're already paying for their, just making sure, I just want to make sure we've answered all.
So this may be a tough question. So just Collingswood alone, do you know how many kids are part of the middle school athletics program currently?
I don't have it with me right now, but
So I'm just, this is going to lead to another question. So I'm just curious if we say that number, we divide that 150 by the amount of families, that's approximately what it's going to cost per family. And
no, I have to back out Oakland.
Okay. So some sports cost more than others, sorry, okay. So if not enough families are opting for this, that's going to potentially increase the cost for the families that do, no?
No,
Okay.
so if let's say there are 3 programs, right? If not enough families sign up for, say, to run a ultimate frisbee team, right? That's my thing. Then it just wouldn't happen. So that cost wouldn't happen, and so instead of 150,000, it'd be like 100,000. Yeah, it'd just be $100,000, right? And then I appreciate the complexity in terms of actually calculating all this, because not only do you have to back out the Oakland students, but also you probably need to do it by program for the costs. Both students might participate in multiple sports, right? So it's not just like, even per students. Plus, there needs to be a provision done in place where basically we need to pull in enough money from folks who do not qualify for free or reduced price lunch, so that they can get free enrollment into these programs, right? So that's how that is done, and it's a complex process. I'm pretty sure that has to happen. But essentially, we're saying that this money has to be covered by families.
And we're using sports as our examples tonight, which is accurate, and extracurricular clubs and activities. So it's all encompassing for our middle school programming.
When we talk about a potential operating referendum and paying for these things, is that something that we're considering bringing back into the budget so that families don't have to pay for that?
I mean, I think that's probably up for our discussion, right? And so I think
Is that on the table? Is
Yeah.
that something that we
I
could
think
do?
everything that's been taken away is on the
Okay,
table
got it.
when we're asking people to pay more,
Okay.
would be my opinion.
I just want to leave space. Are there any other questions that we can provide clarity around? Because I do think we should make sure we get the information that will help inform decisions.
Right, and I do want to preface that by, I do want to say that, I respect the fact that everybody has the right to vote, and I don't want to put pressure on people to vote yes or to vote no on anything. I do appreciate the opportunity that Roger gave us tonight to have these conversations and to have, and to ask our questions. So if there are questions that you want to ask that would help you clarify how you decide to vote next week on the budget, if there are any further questions about that, that would be helpful.
and maybe just an encouragement there. We spent an hour talking about $5,000 to start this board meeting. So
For a good reason, but yes.
yeah. But my point being that definitely now's the time for us to talk through all these very difficult
Sure,
decisions.
I appreciate that.
And what I want to throw out there is, again, my office isn't ready to go through the whole exercise of trying to figure out what to charge, but I'm just going to throw this out there. It won't be like me by myself. It'll probably be like Meredith will be involved, other people in my office. But if a board member wanted to sit in there too, just to make sure that I'm thinking of everything, because we need a lot of eyes on this, because it's not just a generic athletic fee that everybody pays. It's like we're really going to be affecting just a certain group of people, and I just want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah,
I
think
really appreciate that, and if you could send us an email when you're doing that, if anybody wants to join, then that would be, something that could be possible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think you'd also have to look at the internal timelines for signups. Like that would have to start happening a lot earlier to make sure that you understand whether we're going to be able to fill a team or not. And then to the process of if a kid hasn't paid, who's putting that, who is then collecting, not to lay that on a coach to have to then say, hey, you didn't pay.
Excellent point, Matt, because we have that issue with the food service too, right?
Sure.
Well, and food service we sort of tackled where now it's in Genesis. So when you go on for your annual, update all your paperwork, it pops up for food service. Do you want to apply, yes or no? I'm working with the tech team to do the same thing for activity fees. So I'm not constantly, there is a flag in Genesis, so if a teacher or a coach wants to look, there is a flag that denotes whether a child has paid or not, but getting the flag on there, it's a whole thing. We have to, we look at the bank accounts just to see, who's paying what, but it's just the mechanism to get the people to fill out the paperwork is what we need the help with. So we're working with tech that it's another one of those pop-up things when you go in Genesis to say, hey, does your child participate, or will they be participating in sports, yes or no? Please complete this form. So we're capturing people in the beginning of the year versus later.
Would a breakdown would we be able to understand by sport or by activity, what the cost is, particularly if we were going to go out to boosters to say, hey, if we could raise half of this would mean X amount of kids can do it that maybe couldn't afford it? like, if we can get to that level of detail as we go out there and ask again, like, I think we can be creative to try to solve this problem. And I think, speaking of a parent of a kid who's going into 8th grade, who has played middle school sports each year, like, his first year wasn't great with it, but this year's been awesome. And I would love for him to continue to be able to do that. So, and to be able to think through, like, within community, how can we address this? I think we have a pretty rich and deep alumni pool here that also did that I think would also be very interested in trying to help make sure that this opportunity is still a reality for kids. So I just want us to think collaboratively on that one.
Say, and another thing to think about as we're creating the sign-in form, and the pay option, is to put a donation option, please, because I know people would, $10 extra a person, imagine how that mounts up. So I would hope that we could consider that, like pay your kid and then, an option to add extra, because people are willing to do it, and I think it would make a big difference, so.
We do a volunteer fee with Little League, and a lot of people end up just giving the volunteer fee back, even though they end up volunteering a lot of their time as well. So it's.
When we're talking about the amount of money allocated in our budget for stipends and coaching fees and things like that, so that is separate. That would not be, that kind of money is not included. And then in the pay to play, correct? That's something that's already in our budget.
No, it's in our
Is that
budget,
part of
but
it?
it's being, the dollar amount that's in our budget, that's being
It's
assessed to
allocated
parents.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So actually, I was going to ask a question similar to that, Meg, because when do we set up the coaches and things like that? Like if, for example, we can't do a sport, when do we let the coaches know? Like, are they dependent on that money? Are we letting,
By season, I would imagine, like, if you put it out
so
in
for
the fall
September,
for basketball.
right, so when do we put that out? Like, when do we have, when
Probably,
effective then?
beginning of the year is when you really want to get
I
all
think
that information.
I think it hasn't worked in practice that way, but I think it's
Yeah.
like, I think it depends on the sport. I think you have some sports that have had coaches that have been in place for years, so you basically know who it is. But if there's
Yeah.
another one, I think it's part of having to start the sign-up process a lot
I'm just
earlier.
thinking if we
Yeah.
don't have the money to keep that
Sure.
specific sport going, what happens to that person who's coaching, and when do they get the notice by, and how does that affect them?
Well, yeah, no, if we started earlier, then hopefully that can help with maybe doing some recruitment and getting to try to fill that out. And I think that's, if we see that numbers are low, then that can be something that, just like with courses or other pieces like that.
So I just wanted to know, who owns coordination of these efforts? What role in our district would facilitate this? Is this our building leaders? Is this each athletic director? The athletic director it coordinates all of this. Do we deem that to be a student-facing position or an administrative position?
Both, because they
I
plan
just want to,
games, yeah.
I'm saying this because I think we hear that we have too much administrative, not enough student, but we have these roles to help facilitate the experience and enhancement of education. So as we're thinking about role, which goes, people wear several hats who sit in these line items, and so that's why I'm asking the question. The athletic director also has this administrative function and this, so I just wanted to make sure that I was super clear because I think I've heard as we've discussed the budget that question.
Can I just ask Ann just left, but this pay to play would also extend to activities like theater or clubs as well, correct, for middle school?
For middle school, yes.
Okay.
So I think that, we use to, just so that people can, it's illustrated, we call it pay to play. All we're really talking about is a revised activity fee. That's really what it is, just a revised activity fee.
I'm asking this as somebody who did do it for a while. Do you know a percentage of middle school clubs that maybe have faculty who volunteer their time? Would those clubs be affected? So in other words, if a small club is run by a staff member who is not getting a stipend, would that be something that would be eliminated, or would that continue? And this is not to suggest that staff members should be volunteering their time, because I know that's not what I'm asking.
Right, and so I think the initial go-to is not to ask for folks to volunteer. I know that some of our,
It's not at all, yeah,
our
but
folks
yeah,
do.
I want to be very clear what I'm
But in
asking.
a volunteer scenario,
If
they
someone
would-
already
they
does,
would
right,
still,
if
they
somebody
would
already
still
does.
be moving, they would still be able to move forward.
Got it.
'cause-
So there's no other expenses associated with, say, a small, like, let's just say the video game club. If that is staffed by somebody, this is purely an example, staffed by somebody who is doing it on a volunteer basis, would that necessarily be something that would be eliminated? Would there be any other overhead to a small
Shouldn't-
club like that?
Shouldn't be. I know
Okay.
that some of our
Thank you.
some of our volunteer clubs in the past were based on mutual shared like of activities. They received donated goods, services, equipment to be able to run the program. And so there would be no obstacle preventing that from still taking place.
And again, I just want to make sure I'm not suggesting that staff members start compensating by volunteering for things that used to be paid. That is not what I'm asking.
In Oakland, we have something called OEF, the Oakland Education Foundation. Is there something like that on? Okay, yeah.
There is one that is in the works that is becoming a nonprofit, is getting established. There's a board. Should be moving by spring.
We're meeting with them next month to talk about goals, objectives, and ways that we can partner to support kids. And one of the things we're really excited about is that one of their goals is also to sponsor classroom teacher grant programs for like innovative projects. And so when we get more information, we'll bring back to the board.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you look at Oakland compared to Collingswood, I mean, we have like 5 little stores, and you guys have this whole thing. I mean, having a little committee like that could just go around to the businesses and ask for donations and ask for this, and I mean, I think a lot of money can come from that. It
This
just
was
takes a
something that was
little
brought up at the
footwork,
roundtable
and
too, right?
yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of us would be willing to volunteer, and a lot of other community members would be able to volunteer to do those things. So.
So,
And also, at the end of the day, tax write-offs to the small businesses at the end of the year, right?
so speaking of revenue, I'm going to bring the conversation back to the big topic that we just dropped on the table, which is an operating referendum, okay? So, first, an operating referendum. So first thoughts on that.
So
that you
I just have a clarification question. So I thought that, I just want to make sure I understand. So I thought that 2 years ago, when we talked about something like this, there were all kinds of reasons why we could not do it. Could you please explain what the difference is between then and now?
Governor Murphy, last year, I forget the name of the thing, he did sign something that allows it. I guess based on the Robbinsville and all the hoo-ha. I forget what it's called, but there is guidance out there now that it is allowed. So this past March, I think there was 4, Robbinsville, Montclair, I think it was 4, half passed, half failed. So they're picking up momentum. I think you're going to see a lot this coming fall because a lot more school districts are struggling. But yeah, since it got challenged with Robbinsville, they are allowing it. You're welcome.
So operational budget, I think that it's something that we obviously need to explore. I think we need to do it in a different way than maybe we've presented in the past. And I, as a board member, as a community member, would want to see, what are we bringing back? Like, I want to see us ask for enough that we can hopefully bring things back and highlight them to the whole community that if we pass, this is what we're bringing back, this is what we're adding on. That is something that we need to present to the community so they can see the importance. We need to create as much detail, and we need to have as many answers for our community before we present this.
Maggie, if I can
Yeah.
piggyback directly on that, and this may be in part because I'm coming directly from the Tatum community meeting right before this, and there we talked about the operational referendum option at that meeting. I'm wondering, I have no idea, so if this is unclear or doesn't make any sense, just tell me that. But are we able to structure a referendum question in such a way that allows for it to be flexible with the unpredictable increases in goods and services over time? I guess no, it's a flat. Because
I can read you, hold on, give me a second. I did print out the Robbinsville one that passed. I think it's similar to a bond referendum question. You got to give the taxpayers a dollar amount, and you have to tell them exactly what you're doing with it. But
The
it's not
reason that-
like
yeah.
from here and 3% in perpetuity. You have to
The-
give them the exact
yeah.
dollar amount.
The reason I'm
and what
asking
you're
that
doing
is
with it.
because it's a valid is like, without state level structural, how do we ever fundamentally right the ship in a permanent way without always feeling like we're attempting to play catch up? And so,
All right, so I've got Robbinsville's question.
so that was a clear no. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So it's just that you're hereby resolved, blah, 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 blah. The Board of Ed is seeking approval from the district's legal voters to raise an additional $2.7 million for 24-25 school year as permitted under 18A, blah, 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 blah. And then they list, maintain teachers and instructional assistants, maintain current programming, maintain facilities. So they didn't say bring back, they said maintain, and it passed. So maintain current level of courtesy busing, so they have courtesy busing there. We do not have that here. And then they did put athletics on theirs. Okay.
So it's
Saying
more
as we
specific.
But you
talk
just,
about this
but you have to say, so yeah, I would,
Yes, not only does the question, but how we present it to the community needs to be crystal clear. We can't say we don't have that, we don't know it. We need to just, we need to come up with scenarios if we don't know it, if it's something, a moving target. But to get a yes, you have to give the details. We have to give scenarios. We have to give possibilities, options. And that's honestly what I haven't seen in the past and what I would really think that will resonate with our, our community and how we can get a yes from community members.
So I think while it is important and we're going to need to get people excited about it, we also have to be very sober and honest about what happens if we don't do something like this. And I think it is like, it's not just maintain, it is we are going to continue to lose. And what will that mean in 2 years, 3 years? Like, I know you said we can't afford to close another school, but what happens when we can't afford to cut anything else?
So let me be really clear. Maggie's point is crystal clear, well taken. Matt's point is also well taken. This is not hyperbole when we say this. For the last 4 years, and I need for it to sink in, we have reduced roughly 70 positions in the last 4 years. We have cut millions of dollars out of the budget. We have done student-based budgeting. We have robbed Peter to pay Paul. We have gotten our sister districts to spread out tuition reimbursements over multiple years. We've done every possible financial option that we can to get us to this point. If we do not crack this challenge in terms of structural deficit, we're talking about devastating reductions that changes the face of our entire district. We're not talking about, a position here or a position there. We're talking about program closure. We're talking about a domino effect. We don't have an additional $3 million or $4 million in reductions for the 27-28 school year. And so I think, to Maggie's point, what we talked about as a leadership team was based on our rejection from last year's tax levy incentive. We included specific things that Robbinsville included in their tax levy incentive, and we were rejected to the tune of $2.1 million in rejections. We believe that the area that we need to make sure is shored up is investing in teachers, investing in teacher salaries, teacher benefits, teacher support. It's really hard to get a no if 99% of what you're asking for is directly going to teachers and classroom support. That's what I would recommend that our referendum includes. Some of those other things we can operate a bit more fluidly, but I think that with the rising cost of insurance, for example, the cost of full family coverage for a first-year staff member is $52,000 above and beyond their salary, $52,000. And so if we don't have a pool of resources, it's going to significantly limit our ability to actively recruit and actively retain. And so I think that we're going to have to make sure that our community is crystal clear that if we do not do this, we will be like hurting ourselves, like irreparably.
Can I just ask one question? Because I think I want to make sure we're all actually saying the same thing about what this operating referendum could be. It's about maintenance, which is already maintenance of what this current proposed budget is, and possibly rebuilding. It's not it's either maintaining what we're looking at in this list, and then if something structurally changes, we could start to add more. Somehow the state gets common sense. Somehow we close our fair share. Something we could grow. Because I don't know that we could offer, unless we were saying we're going to go for such a huge number, that we're rebuilding programs. We're maintaining is, like, we have to agree on, is this a maintenance or is this a maintenance and growth?
Let's just ask the question, though. Okay,
There's
so you're
also a formula, folks, and so it's not like we can say, hey, we want to go out for 10 million.
Right.
There's a formula that's going to be extremely rigid, and so one of the ways that we would like for you to potentially think about this is look at the gap between local fair share aligned with the formula and look at the overage in terms of state aid. That total between those two numbers is $6 million. Now, I'm not saying that that's the number that we go for. I'm just kind of sharing that's the current gap based on the current funding formula that would make a huge difference in terms of maintaining staff and moving us forward.
Okay, so I just want to say a couple of things. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, no, it's fine. You sort of got toward the question I was going to ask. So, okay, we're talking about maintaining versus restoration of programs. And just on the maintaining level, if we assume that everything happens next year effectively the way that it has this year, so let's say the state does not come through with anything additional, inflation is roughly the same as it was last year and so forth, what is the gap? Like, what is our starting point just to stay level with this year?
4 million.
There you go. So that's what I just wanted us to understand. Before we can rebuild anything, we've got to get $4 million out of the community.
That's the number I chase every year.
And this is also just that's like a year after year permanent tax increase just for operational budget. And the thing too, I think we should discuss with an operating referendum is also facilities referendum, because we have to invest in our facilities. I mean, I'm just thinking about, Trejo, I know Ms. McCulsey, you teach there, this year I think they're cutting 72 positions is what I heard. But this was after they passed the largest facility referendum in New Jersey history, $300-something million, and they're still right now, amidst an operating budget deficit, they're still right now talking about the need to renovate elementary schools, right? Like they're actually, seems like they're going to do that. And so my point is that I understand that it may be confusing or difficult for us or for us to explain to the public, but we need to do the work to explain that, yes, even amidst operational budget struggles, we need to invest financially in our facilities, because not only is that what our students need, but it can also help us become more efficient for our operational budget, right? The fact that our buildings right now, we're not in the most efficient setup, for example, that can help if we invest financially in that structure, can help us. That's one of the levers we can pull to help balance out our operating budget. And so I think we should absolutely be talking about facilities referendum alongside an operating referendum.
Well, if we're talking facilities investment, actually, I think that would be a good opportunity to maybe talk about the future of the Garfield building. So I would like to hear more about what the plan is, what the building is worth, what we're thinking of selling for, what the plan is there. Because if we could get a couple $1 million to invest in facilities and invest in our capital fund, that would alleviate the need to go to a facilities referendum for the community as well. I think trying to save the community some tax revenue.
Does that have to be an executive session? Because and I asked this without knowing, just because of discussing real estate or other pieces.
It doesn't have to be. It can be.
I mean, that'd be fine, but then I'd like to schedule that executive session.
Sure,
because
and
I
that
think
was just
this
me
is an
not
important,
just asking before we go too far down if it was something that we couldn't discuss in public at this point.
Can I just touch base on that comment, or that question in 1 second? I just want to say that you just mentioned about changing the face of the district. We're already doing that. We're already closing down a school. That's already changing the face of the district. So I'm going to just put that out there, which I think we all know. The next step from here, if we decide to go with an operating referendum, I presume that the ad hoc facilities committee is going to meet to talk more about the details. Like, what is it that when we bring this up tonight, what's happening? What's the next step in the process?
The facility referendum or the
Referendum, yeah.
Well, I would recommend that, I mean, this was a great discussion. I think we should talk about it again next month and again in June. Now, next month, I think we should probably start talking. It sounds like everybody's very interested. We all recognize the need. There's a 90-day notification to the county. So if we wanted to go out in September, you got to count back your 90 days where we would have to approve a question and get it to the county. So for this September,
Can I suggest something to just throw it out there? September's rough because that means that as a board, we're campaigning all summer. People are away. I would ask us to think about November because it's a better election. You have more turnout.
And we pay less.
And we play, and
We pay
that's a
less.
big consideration. And we pay less. And we have the entire beginning of the school year for this board to campaign for what we need for our schools.
And that's fine. I can
So
put it on the agenda that way that we can next month figure out
would like us
when you want to go.
consider a November election.
On the back end, however, if and when it were to pass, what is the timeline on the back end to receive I just want to make sure we're thinking about the back.
All right, so I got in an argument with the county BA about this, and I was correct. I just want it for the record. Because I said, oh, if we do well, because, you know, you call Trenton, and you're supposed to get answers back that are accurate, and they're not always accurate, so I'm just going to say it. Property tax bills go out in January. So I called the county, and I'm like, well, if I'm approved in September, we can start getting our money in January. No, it's for next school year. And then they copy the budget guidelines and they send it to me. So I wrote back, thank you, I can read. But property tax bills go out in January, so I'm pretty sure if I'm approved in September, we can start getting some of our money in January. So we can like kind of build a little surplus to go into the next year. Do you know what I mean? So we have something. So in a perfect world, September, November, whatever, if it gets approved, we could possibly start getting some of that increased tax levy revenue in January of next year. And then the full amount would be in the following year budget. But in a perfect world, that would be when it would happen.
But November's close, cutting it close, it's the possibility of more than one vote, potentially. You don't have it.
I was only suggesting November, basically, I know it's later, right, and we
Right.
won't have to, we won't be building like a surplus, but I think we're gonna get more people out. So the chances of and us campaigning all of the fall, I think is really critical. I mean, the summer, logistically, I think it might be worth waiting 2 more months, but that's.
And again, we can,
My only other question is, let's say we do it if we do it in September, if we do it earlier, this might be a dumb question, would it be able to be will we get the money for the next budget, before the next budget, like, be able to factor it in? I guess that's what my question is November gonna be too late to factor it into, like, the next year's budget? No? Because it's already coming, so we
yeah,
can
if it
already
passes, that's why I think when Robbinsville did it, when theirs was approved in 24-25, they went out in March and got approval, and they went and they included it right in their April budget so that everything was set for the next school year. So my feeling is like the earlier you go, obviously the better. But
I think
the
we-
November, obviously we would be sharing the costs with the county and the state and everybody else who's on the
I
ballot.
think we need to look at the ones that just went out to see, because which town was it that lost by like 6 votes? Like
Montclair.
So Montclair's failed by 6 votes, and so it is, I don't know, so that's something that you have to consider, is it like, because
Robbinsville's failed too, and then there was,
I've heard
like
both
Union
sides of
Township
it
or
with the numbers. Like, I've heard that if it is on its own ballot, then it is the only thing that people are coming out for. So you're getting the people that are the most informed on this and that have the most, like, are care about it. If it is out on the November, it is part of a broader selection. You're getting more people that are coming out that maybe aren't informed. So it's just something that we have to consider as we weigh when we would want to go. Like, what makes the most, we haven't passed a referendum in, like, the facilities ones in 20 years. Like, we need to make sure that if we're going to put this investment out here to get it done, that we're considering all angles. So that's not to say that November isn't it, but I think I think we should look closely at what the other towns did and what did and didn't work.
I was gonna say devil's advocate to Maggie's, like, I don't know if more people out is a better idea.
True.
You know?
I mean, I know.
So-
I mean, I think my biggest thing is campaigning all summer is more difficult, and to get people to come out to forums and community events where you hit people right in September. You know, school year's back. People are excited to be back. People are engaged. I mean, I know in September the PTA meetings are the most. You know, have the most.
Well, maybe that's a good time to do it,
Right. So like
September, because everybody's happy, school.
true, but I don't know.
If we learned anything from the last one, I think it is shortening that window of when we were out there. And I think it is making sure that we're primarily focused right on those last couple weeks of when we want to get out and get people on there.
I would like to offer us meeting as a facilities committee and then bringing that conversation back to the board next month.
Well, so my hand's up because we were started with operating referendum, and the question is, are we also saying we're going to do a facilities? I agree that we need to think about our facilities because I am deeply struggling that we have schools that are not ADA accessible personally and just as a human. And so it is really disappointing that our schools are not accessible and safe for children who may have challenges. And so I'm advocating for it, but are we all agreeing that it is both? They are not the same thing. And operating referendum is really what's the math, and do we agree on this is what we want to go for, which isn't we don't have a committee for that, but are we actually all agreeing we are prepared to stay in front of
Is there
both?
anyone who would be against,
I didn't
Raise your
think we
hand,
could. I
type
didn't
thing.
think we.
I think you create a new ad hoc.
I didn't
potentially
think we
for-
could do it. I didn't think we could do both at the same time.
You have debt that's expiring in 2030, so
Yeah, can we do both at the same time? I think we can,
Yeah.
can't we? We can do both at the same
No,
time.
I'm
thought
actually
we
trying
could.
to.
I don't know. I don't
think
think
that
we'll.
increases the chance that they both fail.
Yeah.
No, I'm
yeah.
not
gonna say-
suggesting we should, but I think we keep mentioning, so I'm actually deeply asking us to prioritize the people and operating budget, right? Like that's.
I'm gonna
what I think-
I'm gonna piggyback with what Zakiya just said, because at the end of the day, every community meeting that we have had for the last several months, I think that there is widespread acknowledgement that there needs to be something for facilities. But in terms of maintaining the stability of our district, I think that we've got to make the investment in people first, facilities second. At least that's the feedback that we've gotten from parents and from staff.
So
And I would be
also-
remiss not to tell you.
And one
I'm
more
sorry.
thing, and there's only a certain threshold of what our community members can sustain and support financially. And if I'm going to pick or choose between one or the two, I think our staff need to take precedent.
I agree. I thank you for that comment because I was just going to say, I know we're sitting here going back and forth with this, and I just want to be very mindful that we have a community full of people that are going to have to pay for this, and we know that we've put a lot of burden on them over the last couple of years, and this is a big ask for them, and I know that they've come to us and said, what can we do to help, and they want to have this conversation, but we are mindful that this is a big impact on the community.
And as far as I think the operational has to go first, like Fred said. You have debt expiring in 2030. So in 3 years, you could do close to a tax neutral, swap out one debt for another. There's no, we would have to run the math. But you've got the 2005 bond referendum is expiring in 2030.
Can we also go back to Megan? Why aren't we selling Garfield and taking millions of dollars and
Yes.
putting it into our building?
I
I
we
mean,
really
like, that's
need-
like the big, like,
So
flashing light that I
have
would like to,
been-
us.
Yeah, I've been asking this question for like 2 months. So if we could get a timeline to get some information about what the plan is for that humongous building, that would be great.
That
Like-
is on the table. I obviously without going into closed session and disclosing things, but that is definitely on the table. That's the reason why Garfield. I mean, look at where it's hanging out. So yeah, it's totally on the table, and we would be remiss not to do that and get as much money for it as we possibly can to increase our capital reserve, increase our maintenance reserve that I've just depleted, and whatever's left over, have it for the budget. 1,000%. It's totally on the table. Just as far as all the inner workings of everything that's going on to make it happen, obviously cannot be disclosed in public, but totally on the table.
So when will our executive session be then? Because it needs to happen, because,
Oh, no, I
we were
understand.
talking about this
First,
back in
like I said,
February.
the first step would be getting you guys to approve the closure, and we send it to the state. As soon as we get that letter back from the state saying, yes, it's closed, because you have to tell them what you're going to do with the building. Like, are you going to mothball it and just keep it forever, or are you selling it? So we're telling them we're selling it, or whatever we're going to do with it. Then we go into closed session and we do what we have to do. But the first step is send this to Trenton and get their approval for you to close
So
it.
we could have
and
a
then
closed
it's
session in May, potentially?
potentially,
So I
my
want
mouth is dry. Depending how quickly Trenton gets back to us with that approval letter to close the building, then it's completely up to you guys.
So I want to caution us from overestimating the value of the property. The building, from a commercial perspective, is not worth anything. The land is, and so in order to get an appropriate commercial assessment of the land, costs money. And so we have not recommended that the board take on cost until the board actually votes to approve its closure. The state confirms its closure, then we can actually engage with a organization that would allow us to have a data-driven conversation about what is it worth, and then take us through the actual public bid process for disposal of district property.
And then that would all be once we know, we would go through all that in closed session with you guys. Because it's completely opposite of when we buy things. So, yeah, we would have to do that.
I think these conversations are really important, and especially the Garfield one, because this is actually what helps makes decisions for the budget for next year, at least for me. Like, I want to know where we're going. That's like the first time we thought, yes, we can have a closed session. Like, this is what we have to do first and second and third. That makes it a little easier to digest to close a building that we all love and, respect, and the people in it, when we know what our next steps are, and it's not just in the future. So thank you for providing the details and the ongoing discussion. Yeah. So this helps with our meeting next week too.
I absolutely agree with the idea that we should be utilizing these resources to help us renovate our other facilities, right? That can help lower the cost for the town. One thing I want to make sure that I'm a pretty big proponent of investing in our schools, and I do think, of course, the operating referendum where we're at right now, clearly that needs to take precedent. We also really, really need to grapple with the facilities piece, because the idea that, I don't think we can just keep on increasing the operating budget forever and not change the structure of our schools, because it's just not financially feasible. I mean, I think about West Milford is closing their second elementary school in 3 years. Middletown this year is closing 2 elementary schools while laying off 40 employees, while raising taxes, right? Like, these things are actually happening throughout the state. And the idea that we can just, keep our structure as is and try desperately to hold on to what we have, I don't think that is going to work well for us. And we can do a lot better, and we should do a lot better for our schools, for our students, for our staff, by figuring out how can we become more efficient, deliver better education, and that's going to require investment in facilities, right? If we talk about administrative costs, well, if we want to cut more administrative costs, we have to have fewer buildings. That's one piece there, right? And the thing is that we are a small town, right? And I understand what that means is that everyone here feels the price of taxes a lot, right? But we can't all want to live in a small town and enjoy that it's a small town and not understand that the small town then has to take on that cost. And my point there is that I understand that affordability is something that we all have to grapple with as residents here and as policymakers, right, here in the town. But I really want to stress that our plan for affordability in Collingswood should not be to rob our students of their education, right? So affordability and how we do that in Collingswood is a borough-wide piece. And to say that our plan to keep Collingswood affordable is to not update our buildings is literally robbing.
I think anybody's
Peter
saying
to-
that, though.
to
I
pay
think
Paul.
we're saying, let's do our first step, let's
Yep.
invest in the people, which are directly affecting our children, and then let's work on selling that giant, piece of land and putting it towards something while also refocusing on, regionalization or whatever that next step
Sure.
is. But we have to take that first step before we get to the whatever's
Sure.
next.
And I absolutely agree with you there. And my point is that my point is that I think that next step has to come sooner than I think a lot of us might want, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable because of that. And look, here's also the other thing. There are multiple ways to do facilities updates in the town. For example, the state, I think, passed, was it last year, a method where boards of education can work with the county redevelopment office to fund, without a vote, facilities referendum. Now, ideally, the borough backs that plan, right? But the law basically says that we could work with the county redevelopment office to do a referendum, and it doesn't require a public vote. And other districts have been doing this, right? And so I understand there are political realities in terms of taxes are never popular. But I think our job up here isn't to be popular, it's to do what's best for our students. And so that's my push there.
So I just want to be really intentional, and I totally hear you and would offer, what we're resoundingly probably hearing and sharing with folks, we're closing one school, it's, well, okay, how is it going to help us benefit and address this immediate issue? And I do agree, we need to start thinking longer term, because that is also the ask. Stop saying the sky's falling every year, figure out a plan. And so it isn't either or, it's sequencing. And we as a board need to be really intentional that it may be September's for this and this is the other. But we need to start to be really intentional around how we're chipping away at this, because the underinvestment in our facilities is not serving us at all. But we have to prioritize somewhere. So I think we need to keep talking about how are we going to start to invest in the facilities and spaces our children are in, as well as the people. And so I think it's both, and it's just really how do we start to message it and make it work with some ease, because I agree with you that that we need to balance it, and the tax base is going to feel it, because that is just part of how this is working, no matter,
And both are needed. I think, tonight our conversation is focused on the operational piece because we're talking about staffing and we're talking about $3 million in cuts, right? So while I hear you and you made a lot of excellent points, I think that right now what the community is asking for is that we're focusing on prioritizing, who's in the classroom with their children. And I also think that at the same time, like Zakiya said, and like Maggie said, and like you said, we also need to be long-term planning and thinking about other things. But I think right now, this is the focus of the conversation because this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about closing buildings, and we're talking about eliminating positions in the classroom, right? So I just want to put that out there.
I agree.
But I
and
hear you.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's good for us to have both in, because we don't want to lay out we got to be honest with the community that, it's not going to be the end of where the asks are in terms of how, if we want to get to the district that we think our kids deserve versus the reality that's going to happen if we don't do anything. And I think we need to be honest about what both of those look like from an operational, but then also from a facility standpoint. And I think when we go into conversations about regionalization, if we are going in there from a point of strength where we have facilities that have been upgraded and have been updated and can accommodate learners of different needs, that are ADA accessible, that people can use, have had updates recently, that makes us a more attractive partner than if we are coming in with buildings that haven't been touched in decades. Because I see a reality where we go in there with that front and we have to close more schools because they're like, well, why would we send our kids to that building when they could come to ours, which has been updated much more recently, is more accommodating, has more space, is ADA accessible, et cetera. Like, that is a part of those conversations that we really need to be thinking as a board. What are we doing to make sure that we can keep our kids in Collingswood?
Can I ask a question about regionalization? Because I guess I'm missing, where do we see that Collingswood's going to be able to bring in other towns if we can barely fit in ourselves? And I'm not saying that as like a pushback. I'm just like realistically, like we do keep saying this. We want to be, you know, the school that people or the town people. But maybe I'm missing something because I don't really understand the whole process or how it
Well,
will look.
It's not just bringing people in here. It would be like for example, if we were to fully regionalize with Woodland and Oakland, it would probably mean, to be honest, like a closure of a Collingswood school and a redistribution of our students to Oakland and Woodland. Like, it wouldn't just be bringing them here. The high school already fits them here, right? Like, so it's not just
No, I
folding
guess,
them in.
yeah, but, and that's why I'm like, if we're focusing so much on, and not that I don't think that we need a facilities referendum, but, I mean, that's probably our most likely situation that, I mean, I guess that's just what I'm missing. It's like, we can't fit any more kids here, so how are we going to be, you know,
So
I think that-
I'm sorry, Matt, the value in the regionalization would be for districts that don't have a K-12 continuum. And so we would not be seeking to actively recruit elementary students. We have bandwidth and capacity to support middle and high school students, as well as adult learners in our 18 to 21 program. And so if you look at middle, high, and adult, there are school districts that are K-8 that could benefit from our high school. There are schools that are elementary only that could benefit from middle school and high school. There are school districts that are so small that they would benefit from our 18 to 21. And so if we're looking from a regional perspective, we'd be casting a much wider net. And there are several districts that we are seeking to engage in that discussion and have also engaged us.
and that makes more sense because we have more room here. And that's where we keep going back to our elementary buildings, and that's where I don't want to see us invest a ton of money and then regionalize, and then we're not utilizing buildings. And not because they're not upgraded, but because we can't fit anybody. So that's just a thought to throw out there because I couldn't really wrap my head around, we can't fit any more elementary kids, so why would we consider regionalizing? But makes
And to piggyback on the questions about regionalization, so school districts would have to agree to regionalize with us. So hence is why we're going out.
Current state. And so this is, I mean, this may be provocative or maybe even projecting out what school district leaders and regional leaders, what we believe is that from a state perspective, they are allowing a certain degree of bloodletting to take place statewide in order to compel the forced regionalization. And so when we met last month with leaders across the region looking at funding, there are bills on the floor that are in active discussion on the assembly floor. And right now, the topic is, are they going to incentivize or mandate? And so if they mandate, then no, there wouldn't necessarily be a vote that's required. If they incentivize, it depends on the incentive.
And one more thing, and then I will shut up about this. So that would, regionalizing through incentive would require votes from all of the populations in each of those districts, correct? So even if we worked something out, then Oakland residents, Woodland residents, for example, would have to vote and agree. Got it, thank you.
Unless they change the law. But right now, yeah, it requires a vote.
And that's is it a public vote or a board vote?
Public.
It's a public vote.
Board and public.
It's a
And then,
public vote.
so then also, so a couple other things with regionalization is understand that once we regionalize, right? Like, let's say we have 11 board members. That means that Collingswood would only get a proportion of the board member seats to the population. The other thing too about regionalization is absolutely this is something that we need to be talking about because it's a serious solution to, it's not a full solution, but it's a partial solution to some of our financial issues. But why, for example, an operating referendum is needed is because this solution is incumbent for like 5-10 years. Like, if you think about how long it's going to take, unless the budget situation across the state gets so strong that the state forces our hand. Like, this will take 5-10 years, right?
Can we reel back to budget? And Sorry. The question about that Roger had about like how everyone's voting did not go over very well with everyone. But can we hear what the fallout would be if there's a no vote on the budget?
You mean like we don't have enough to pass? I keep calling you back until May 7th, until we have a final budget. And then if we don't, I call the county.
Could you give
Yeah,
us
that
an
what's that look like? I mean, like when it's
Basically,
county would
what the
come in?
state approved, it's what's probably, it's just gonna happen. They're just gonna give me the authority to sign the tax certification.
So additional questions, so you said that you will be giving us a list of, categories, got it, okay, and numbers, correct? Thank you. The consolidation plan for the secondary campus, how can that go through if we are still deciding, or, I mean, maybe the decisions have been made, but, you know, can you give us any kind of an update?
The reductions have already happened.
Correct.
So the finances of the budget is approved. And so
No, I appreciate that, but-
the reductions of positions has already happened. And so I think that, you know, all the consolidation is a removing some of the redundancy and becoming more efficient in order to maintain the integrity of programs and services. And so subtle tweak here, subtle tweak there. It wasn't a major structural change. We just didn't want to make changes without telling people. And so, I mean, if we had just made the reductions through the normal budgetary process, it might have been easier, but we wanted to get real feedback from the community, and we wanted to share with people why we were making these decisions. And in our stead to be transparent, it muddied the waters just a bit. And so at the end of the day, we could not have anticipated the magnitude of the budget gap. And so we were trying to be proactive in our planning in order to reduce operational expenditures that did not negatively affect students. And so we forecast last year in April that consolidation of the middle and the high school to a single campus and removing some of the operational costs would be discussed. We announced in September that we would be pursuing that proactively in preparation for what we thought was going to be a challenging budget. And so, I mean, to give you like a concrete example, the middle and the high school counseling department. They have 2 separate offices. They've got, you know, 2 secretaries. We don't need 2 secretaries for 5 counselors. And so that would be like an example of moving a position to another area where it's needed. If you've got 2 folks that teach the exact same thing and we don't have the students to support both, one of those positions would be reduced, and so on and so on.
There were many meetings with parents and community members about the plan. Is that plan going to be like communicated to the community and the parents?
Yes. Once the budget is completed and we move into implementation, the bulk of May and June will be communicating budget impact and forecasting for September for the community.
So I guess back to the budget piece, thanks for pulling us back around, is, you know, I was thinking about what our board responsibility is, right, on the budget. And I think we all know that we have an administration to implement the budget and to basically do the best possible job that y'all can with the resources we have in order to provide the best education we can. At the board level, you know, we can help set priorities and have suggestions and so forth. And I think what we've seen from the last hour or so discussion about the referendum is that this is a major revenue problem that we're facing, right? We just we cannot right now bring in enough money to fund the schools as they are. But I guess I want to put forth a couple questions to the board just to make sure that we're grappling with different maybe priorities to see if these are things that we want to consider or not. I know it might be a little, you know, in April, but I was looking at the choices that we have that are in this budget in terms of what cuts there are, et cetera. And I know that there's a lot of concern about positions being eliminated. One potential reprioritization would be, we have not right now said that we would make all athletics and extracurriculars pay to play. Now, I'm not saying that we should, but I want to put forth to the board, is that something we're willing to discuss? That would, I think, you said that it was 1.2 million is the whole thing, so then but we're already taking away 150,000 from middle school. But if we took away high school, that would save about $1 million, right? So that's a reprioritization us as a board we could vote for, and that would save jobs, but it would require that all extracurriculars become pay to play across all grades. So that's something I want to put forth to say that's a reprioritization that we could, I think we should discuss here. Is that something that this board is willing to engage with if we're concerned about losing the number of positions we are, or would we like to, as a board, continue with only turning middle school extracurriculars into pay to play?
That's a fair question. Not one that I've considered. I think because we have given a lot of that responsibility to our administrative team to tell us what it is that they need from us in order to make things happen. So if that is even an option on the table to discuss, then we can have that discussion, but I'm not sure that it is.
I would strongly caution against that. And there's a couple of reasons why. For one, extracurriculars and activities are the reasons why our kids come to school. Second, we have tuition and shared service agreements with Oakland and Woodland, and by not delivering on the full scope and services, there would be refunds that are needed, and so it would create a bigger hole. And then the final piece is that I would anticipate that we would see a swath of kids transferring and leaving our district, which creates an even bigger hole in terms of enrollment. And so I think that it would be a domino effect of negative impact. And so that's not something I would recommend that the board consider. Son of a PE, football, basketball, track coach, basketball player, soccer player, I wouldn't recommend that. But it's within your right to discuss and decide as a board if that's what you want us to do.
Wasn't there, was it guidance or something from the county at some point about they wouldn't approve that?
I thought they took it out of the last time we asked for money. They didn't include
Well, I
sports
mean,
at all.
I'll jump in here because or if you want.
Here's where the state says one thing, the county says another, and I can't get a straight answer. Okay, you can quote me. County business administrator superintendent said they consider extracurricular and athletics part of a thorough and efficient and well-rounded education. So then when we did our tax levy incentive aid application, I included it in our application, and Trenton said no. So Trenton doesn't consider it, but the county does. So,
And so do we.
and we, but I mean, like, my point is, if Trenton considered it part of a well-rounded education, they should fund it. Exclamation point. They do not. That's why a lot of districts that have high schools are struggling because of the sheer cost of providing these things.
But I guess I have been, as we were talking about the middle school pay to play, thinking, well, why can't high school have an increase in the student cost or the amount to slightly reduce how much we're to have some, but I don't know if that's really enough to substantively move the dial. I just don't know if it's enough. But I do agree that with, I think, Roger's general premise, there are trade-offs, right? You can't have a lot of sports and have all the people, right? Like, that just isn't gonna balance. And so I do think it is, I guess I'll reframe it and say, is there a way to shift some of the cost share, as we've seen insurance companies do, as somebody who battles them every day, to help us preserve positions in this district, right? It's not move everything, but is there a way to shift a bit more? Because I do think that that's worth thinking about. And also, full pay to play, even more. We just got to find the perfect sweet spot so people, again, won't leave because they feel like there's no option. So I get it, but I think it's something to think about or try to. But if it's too much.
Can I ask an obvious question? If we did pay to play for athletics at the high school, would we not close Garfield? Would that be money to save so that we wouldn't have to close an elementary school?
I'm just gonna,
Well,
I'm
how
gonna
much-
muddy it even more for everybody. And the reason why the middle school is just easier pickings from my perspective. The high school, we have two districts that send to us for on tuition purposes. Included in that tuition calculation are sports and extracurriculars. So you gotta piece that out. Then the large percentage of free and reduced that are at our high school that are not in our other buildings. So now you're asking families, I'm just going to throw a number out, I don't even think it's right, but it's a very, I think I did this calculation last year, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, it could be upwards of $1,000 a family. Was that, am I right? Was that the number I was talking about at one point? Yeah, so it was just obnoxious. So that's kind of why I just was like, not that we shouldn't have the discussion, but nobody's going to pay that. So then we're going to be in the position of, do we still run the programs and me not get the money, and then we're upside down because it's, everybody said, yes, I'll pay, and then kind of like, this is why we have lunch, why we have people charging lunches and not paying me. It would be the same thing all over again, but on a grander scale.
Yeah, I think
You know what I'm saying?
if we don't have a number, it's hard to make that decision. If
We
don't know
would,
what
we
kind of
would,
numbers we're talking
we
about.
would recommend that in the board's deliberation about operational referendum, that be included in the discussion, to be able to secure funding for a foundational amount of athletics and extracurriculars, all student-facing, as part of the discussion. I also want to kind of share is that we toiled and we wrestled with this as an issue. We opted in a challenging budget where there is the feeling of loss. We wanted to minimize what kids would be experiencing. And I'm going to say again, high school sports makes up a large percentage of the high school experience, whether you are an athlete or whether you are a spectator. It brings communities together, and we needed to make sure that we could maintain that for our community to the degree possible.
I mean, we're also talking about there, not just sports, right, but also theater, band, choir, all that stuff too. Yeah, and I think Zakia, you said it exactly right. I appreciate the discussion, not necessarily because I believe that we should be making all those things pay, because I don't. I do believe that's part of a thorough and efficient education, despite what the state said to us last year. But this is the magnitude of decisions we're talking about, of trade-offs we're talking about. And I think we as a board, when we're talking to the community members, I think that's something that I've realized that not everyone really understands, that we're not talking like, yes, of course, the $20,000 local fundraiser is going to be really great. It's going to be really helpful for the middle school sports, all that stuff, right? But we're not talking, like, we're talking about this magnitude of like millions of dollars of making all of our after-school programs completely pay to play. That's the type of trade-offs that we have to talk about and think about, and it's a really difficult position, and I appreciate everyone here grappling with that discussion.
I think it would be helpful, and I know it's not for this year, but to see options. I mean, we're never presented with options. It's kind of like, this is where we are, this is what we have to do. And I mean, I looked at a couple different budget presentations from other schools, and there were options, and that maybe they weren't in the biggest like hole that we are, but when you can see clearly like what it would look like, as different scenarios, I think that would be helpful, or it would have been helpful. Or just saying, like, would it ever have been an option to keep, for pay to play for high school
Right, that
and not
wasn't an
Garfield?
option
I don't
that we
know.
even
Like,
talked
even
about
if it's
until
not something anybody agreed with, the options are lacking. And there's got to be something. There has to be some type of option, whether it saves us a little or not at all, or they both are equal the same but look different for the community. But this is kind of the second year that we're in a really tough spot, and we're being submitted a presentation. It's like, this is it. This is all that you have, your only option. And it just doesn't sit great with me because we don't see, I'm not asking for the operational piece of it, but we're not seeing any option as crazy and ridiculous as it might have been or as little as it might have saved us. And I think that would have been.
So your point is well taken, but I think that we also need to have some reality checks as a community, not necessarily as a board, but as a community. In order for you to have options, you have to have a savings account. We do not have that. When we talk about when we presented that we spent 99.33% of our budget, that's because we were budgeted so lean that we had little to no margin. We rolled over $158,000 for this upcoming school year. In order for us to be healthy, in order for us to be able to maintain a degree of flexibility, we need to have resources. And I think that the reason why options were not presented is because the overwhelming majority of our budget are people, and we also have fixed costs because we have fixed operational expenses that just can't go away. When you've got multiple buildings, the lights have to be on, the water, all of those other core things. In terms of staffing, staff have to be paid. Staff increases, which are earned increases, are automatically included within that, and that's just funding that just no longer exists when we start rolling these things over. Health insurance, the increase of health insurance, and I need for the public to understand, the single one of the increases just in health insurance, nothing new, was $1.25 million more. That's margin that we don't have. And so when we're talking about, other districts with flexibility, yes, some other districts, they have done referendums. All of our neighboring districts have done multiple referendums in the last 30 years. We've done one in the last 30 years. Other districts, their local fair share, they're at close to full funding. At a bare minimum, they're at 52%, which is the state average. We're at 47. When we talk about, the efficiency or the operations, other districts have banked cap that they can leverage. And so I think that we have exhausted all of those core things over the last 5 years, which leaves us with little options to be able to consider. And so when we were looking at how to balance the budget, this is a period of vulnerability. My team, they didn't know how we were going to keep the lights on. And so it took us multiple sessions and me sending people home to cry, to pray, and to sleep so that we could figure this thing out line by line. We went through 1,500 line items to be able to save dollars to preserve and keep as many jobs as possible to fulfill our academic program, meet all of our academic and required services to students, and then any level of flexibility that we had conversations at the school levels. We've had conversations at the board level. As you heard tonight, we made subtle tweaks based on feedback that we received from the board. During our retreat, we talked about athletics. And one of the things and the feedback that came from multiple board members was for us to be able to maintain the integrity of our sports and our extracurricular, or the fear from board members was that we were going to see a mass exodus from our district. And so we figured out a way to be able to maintain that. And so when we talk about options, yes, there were options. But the options were done in tandem with ongoing feedback. But are we going to be able to present option A, B, and C? No, we don't have the funding flexibility to be able to do that.
So something to jump in there, Maggie, because I know I've seen actually other districts give options, right? And those options, the ones, for example, Haddon Township, they did that. But the options were, what if we didn't increase our taxes all the way? What if we increased it halfway? And what if we increased the taxes all the way, right? So that would be, for example, if Beth Hannah presented the option of us not raising taxes at all this year, us raising 2% tax, us raising 4% tax or us raising the full 6% tax. That's the options that I saw other districts present. And for us, I don't, it seems to me here that none of us are proposing that we don't raise the full amount of tax that we're statutorily allowed to raise this year, are we? Right, so that's really the only options that I've seen other districts really provide is how much tax to raise.
I think if I may chime in, I appreciate your question, and I think options are would be a fantastic place to be. Options implies that there are good options, and we are not, and I think the root word is something about optimal, like there's some piece of optimism included in that exercise of what do we want to pick from. And so I think for us, much of the last 3 months now has been about choosing from a list of really bad things to happen to our district. And so I appreciate your question fully, but there are not great options to discuss or debate. So I just want to name that. Like, I think that I fully appreciate what you're asking for, but we don't have other things to deploy here. But I hear your question fully.
Maybe presenting even the terrible options would have at least given us like the full picture. I'm just giving like feedback on, Roger asked, what would we want to see to vote yes or no on a budget? These are the things that I'm throwing out there. So.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Would it, like I remember you asked this at the last, at the meeting in March, would you have had an easier time, or like what if like specific numbers were provided? I remember you asked for that. Like, even though that's not an option, like having that is that kind of like, for lack of a better, the hang up?
Thankfully, I got a couple of them written down, not everything, but yeah, those are the kind of things, like, I would like to see the whole picture. So, and like
What we're cutting and how much and from what buckets and what positions or what areas. You need to see the full picture if we're voting on people's livelihoods, on the money that we're like the steward for the community, for their money, like.
I think
So I was, I guess another follow-up question for that would be, would you want to see, based on those numbers, then would your next question be like asking for options with those specific numbers? Like I think that's what I feel like I'm hearing. Like, I feel like you want concrete, specific numbers, not necessarily, like there aren't really options to give because they're all bad. But like, are you just looking for something, you're looking for more concrete, right?
I'm looking for more details to help me wrap my head around budget and questions. So, we were presented the budget last week and last month, and it was what, $3.3 million. And that was the only number. I think more details to not only explain for us to vote, but also to the community. People are going to be really upset. And when we are able to give as much detail as we can, it has a potential to help engage the conversation, be a little more positive, or as positive as we can be about it, and explain that we don't have a choice, but.
Maggie, not that I'm trying to steer us towards Section 13 curriculum, but I can give you.
so. Can I?
But
Can I-
here's, but here,
Yeah,
no, but here's.
I think this is
no,
an
but to
important.
your point, here's an example. There is, for your approval next week, a new elementary literacy curriculum. I initially budgeted $200,000 for a full K-5 implementation. That number was then shaved to 120. That number was then shaved to 80. As of today, we're continuing to go back and forth and take it even lower because I are fully aware that any of those dollars could be reallocated for a staffing position. And at the same time, I know me, and we all want to put the best possible reading programs in front of our kids. So that would be, I know it's only one example, but I'm just trying to share with you an example of those are the options. So you all could vote no. I hope you do not, but you could vote no on item 13.06, and $80,000 would then be back in play in the operational budget. So those are the deliberations that we make right now.
And I guess I would just offer, To some extent, I appreciate that example, and also would say let me just say, I think it's very clear that the resounding expectation is you're only going to put up something that is accounting for the lowest we can go, because we haven't had an appetite for the highest cost option, the middle cost option. We expect bare bones minimum. I would offer, I think there's also a trying to balance what we're demanding versus getting a lot of options. And I appreciate, I do think a bit more detail around some of this will help us get there faster. But I'm not sure, and I would say today, I was intrigued to hear, like, okay, so if the options are, well, this school versus this school, this is the options, then we could have that discussion. But I also think we would then need to know, well, this is the trade-offs of if we pick this one versus this one. I guess could have been our budget discussion. And is that what we're asking for? I think that's too in the operational detail from the seat I am sitting in. So I am, the expectation is we trust that it's close to meeting the expectations of meeting the expectations of this community, which are not necessarily the level of budget we have. That we are giving some grace around having every option, because not to be rude, Haddon Township is sitting in a new media center. We are not. Right? Like, we are just not the same. So when we're looking at district presentations, let's go sit in the room they're sitting in. They look like none of the ones we have to offer. And I think that's something we should always really make sure that those rooms look like the ones we have. Those stairs look like the ones we have, because we're not apples to apples when we're comparing ourselves to other districts and what they're presenting, because the rooms they have are fundamentally invested in a different way than we're sitting in today. I would go back to trade-offs, though. I just have to ask. I hear the threat of transportation every time we talk about students facing programs, and would like to ask if we, I think at one point there was a whole, like, let's deal with borough, let's try to do shared services, but I am actually going to go to cost share of transportation and how much can it be reduced from the district's budget to how much do we have to do to maintain the programming we have in terms of the cost of transportation. Like, if we put a cap, like, we can invest this much and everything else has to be kind of supported by, but I don't know if that's even possible, and that's why I'm thinking, like, types of trade-offs. I think
it's not, and so a lot of the things, I think that, most of what we do on this board and at the district level is in statute. And so our transportation costs are connected to IEPs. And so I think, and so we can't say, oh, we're going to cap transportation, and then a child moves in, and then we have to transport that kid. The law says that we have to transport that kid. And so I think that there are out-of-district tuition, homeless, like all of those pieces add up, and those are all in statute. And so I think that we can debate the tens and the thousands, but we're talking about a systemic problem that is millions of dollars. And so, yes, I'm not minimizing the tens of thousands of dollars, but that's not going to fix our problem.
So speaking of the millions of dollars, so I just want to make sure that we're going, again, because I know that the budget is really difficult, and the cuts that we're discussing here are terrible, right? We tried our best last year to avoid these, and so I want to make sure we're talking through all the different options. This is why I spent some time thinking through them. Last year, we passed a resolution asking the borough to step in to use their tax cap flexibility to increase revenue for the district. My estimation, given what the borough has, the commissioners have passed preliminarily, is they probably have something like $2 to $2.5 million worth of tax cap flexibility left still. Is this board willing to ask if the commissioners will raise taxes, use their tax cap flexibility to supplement our budget this year? In addition to, right? Because that would only, right, because as I think we said earlier, it would take $4 million to even like hold steady next year, right? But the following year, so the borough has tax cap flexibility. They could raise their taxes and give us additional funding this year for this budget. That's actually what we asked last year before the tax levy incentive aid came through.
Do we have,
So my question is, I know that we're all concerned about the number of staff that we're losing and the services that we're losing for our kids. Is this something that we're willing to ask the borough? And I know, Kelly, you've met with the borough and commissioners, and is this something that you're willing to go talk to the commissioners and ask?
I'm sorry, we have to vote on this budget in a week, and we're talking about, like, is this something that's even feasible? And I know that there have been meetings, I mean, there has been like a collaboration, and there have been meetings between members of our district and the commissioners. I mean, what's the tone of those meetings? Like, we need to be informed about what these talks are sounding like if this is something that's even
I'm
on the
gonna
table.
give Kelly a moment to think about it, sorry, but I do wanna just push us a little bit in the same direction. Last year, we forced difficult conversations to the wire after, actually. We had to keep going. And I would say that we would be a little remiss to not expect more and start pushing on that. I think we, as a board, need to have a very clear position, because right now, I think we're trying to be delicate about, well, they don't have money either. Well, then we cannot keep getting upset about the number of positions on these lists if we are unwilling to go ask for what is rightfully part of making sure this district is whole. I'm not so sure that we'll have it done, but I will be honest, we all need to have a very clear posture that we are willing to hold our borough just as accountable as we are holding ourselves to ensuring that we have the staff and spaces that will support our community. And so I don't know that we should shirk away from it. Timing, maybe not in a week, but we need to continue the conversation and not.
So what I was referencing is that they're not sitting on millions of dollars to be able to help us solve this problem, and that the only way that we would be able to address this is by working in partnership. I know that the borough is increasing taxes because of their shortfalls, and so I think that what I am proposing is that we need to have more definitive, more committal conversations about how we move in the same direction with our borough. And so I think that, I know that they've had their first meeting. I think from a timing perspective, I absolutely think that we need to we need to continue having discussions. I don't know that if it saves what happens on April 29th.
Are you suggesting that the borough does have this money that they're sitting on that we should go after?
I'm not suggesting that they have. We're not talking about surplus. We're talking about tax cap. It would be so. It's exactly what we asked.
They are
them
raising
last year.
taxes
Right.
in general, but are you suggesting that we ask them to raise taxes more?
So what I'm saying is what we did last year, right? When we were faced with a huge budget deficit with the same rounds of cuts last year, what we did on what was it, February 10th, before we had tax levy incentive aid program, was to ask the borough to use their tax cap flexibility. So what that means is they can raise, last year was they could raise something like $3.5, $4 million worth of taxes, and they were only raising it by like $300,000. So they could actually raise millions of dollars more in taxes, and they can statutorily are allowed to give us that money. I mean, we discussed this. We passed a resolution as a board on this, right? What I'm proposing or asking if we want to propose is whether or not we as a board want to ask again the borough to use their tax cap flexibility to raise additional revenue for the district. They're raising their taxes, I think, this year something like 1-something million, but I think they're still, they haven't published the budget documents, but from my guesstimate, there's probably still anywhere from like $1.5 to $2.5 million worth of tax cap there still, that they could probably raise taxes by and give that money to the district to use. So that's another option, right? I'm trying to provide options here, right? Because for us as a board to grapple with, because these are the types of things that we could do to help with the situation.
This might go over like a lead balloon because I'm not a resident here. But I say this as someone coming from a district who actually does more than fully fund its school per the calculation. No worries. I was doing, yeah, we've all had to take a stand up at some point. I hear what you're saying about going to them and asking, can you increase taxes more? My view on this, and it's the question that I don't hear asked often and have never heard anything even approaching an answer for, is what can the borough do differently to go from being 47% funded to 52% funded? What is the community getting for that money that isn't coming to the school? And is it worth it to the community? Or should they at least, I mean, again, this district is the 10th lowest funded in Camden County. How do we even move that needle with the borough and get them to appropriate more money from the existing budget for the schools before we start putting more tax burden on the community members here? I think that is the question again, not a resident, don't get a vote here, but that is the question I would be asking.
And I think we are hearing people ask it, we have been asking, and I think we have to decide how do we, not force the conversation, but we can do a resolution and they can say, well, instead we can reallocate, but we can't get that energy yet to say we are tired of being under, let's give you 1%, 2%, 3%, like doing a shift over time. I think we have to decide, is it a resolution that helps us codify, we are asking you to examine the share and these are the levers we're recommending, for lack of a better word to use. I do think a more specific and deliberate posture and approach with the borough is necessary.
I want to see the trade-offs. What will we lose as a town to get our town better funded, or schools better funded? I'd be interested in seeing that.
Just throwing this out there for transparency's sake, is it an option for us to have a public discussion with the borough? And engage, we did after that whole thing had already started, but is it an option to bring that back to the table and have a public discussion? So that all board members can be part of the conversation?
I mean, I would offer that you are the board president, and one of the things that you can do as a board president is call board meetings. And so you could call a board meeting and do such a thing.
Okay.
There are always trade-offs, and I think that's the piece that we have to agree upon, and well, not agree upon, just we have to as a town understand, and I think we all do, right? And at a certain point, right, the affordability piece is right, that we cannot ignore that piece too. And so I'm not saying that there's an easy solution here, but these are the types of solutions that we have to grapple with, because that's really, because I think if we don't, then folks will think it's as simple as not spending $5,000 on a enrollment catchment system, right? No, it's actually much more serious than that.
And I'm just going to offer that it's not for lack of asking for smaller conversations. So those requests have happened. And I think we have to really make sure that we're prioritizing the airtime and what we are talking about. If we're talking about buildings versus the budget, like, we need to prioritize, because we're not going to get their attention for everything. And so I would offer that as something that we need to really think about, the trade-offs of what have we been putting front and center in front of the borough versus where the kind of gap we need to address. I have deeply, from our community discussions, it is very evident we need to try to, Chris, to your point, like, shift the percentage at a minimum, try to see, but I also don't think it's beyond to say we are putting forth a resolution to kind of almost not force the conversation, but to ask for a more intentional conversation collaboratively and publicly. But we need constituents more than the Board of Ed pushing for this change, because I don't hear a lot of folks coming up to the mic to talk about school district funding. It's more potholes. When will this be done? When is the water going to be done? Yeah. And so I'm still deeply asking for our community to show up and advocate for how you want reallocation of money, because that is not the number one topic coming forward. when the forums are held with our commissioners. And so I do think we have to keep pushing, show up in other rooms and not just here, because we are going to try, but we're not enough, right? So I just want to offer that as something we have to really push on.
So then, like, what is that like, what is that like, what are the steps to that? Does it begin with, like you said, Kelly, like, let's have
Setting up a
joint-
meeting,
w-
yeah,
Like, set up a meeting, a special meeting? Or does it, and then like, okay, let's see what go from, like, I mean, last year it began with a tough conversation before the levy fell in our lap, but like, you know, is that how it begins?
I would imagine, and that, yeah, we're gonna talk afterwards, and I think that if it's, something that we can do to have this conversation with them and actively engage with all of us at the table, I think it's worth having a conversation.
I guess under that topic, I mean, last year there was a very big and public showing of a collaboration between the district and the borough. You know, there were public meetings where we heard borough representatives standing up there with the commissioners and talking about all this collaboration on the fields and things like that. I mean, what is the status of all that? And is there any money? Yeah, exactly, right. I mean, you know, what is the status of all that? You know, is there any money in our budget earmarked to the support of any of those plans? Is anything finalized? And have any of these conversations about funding happened? I mean, I'm not on that committee, so I don't know how those meetings have been going.
So, I'm gonna take us back in time. So last year, the former mayor promised all kinds of money to Collingswood, right? We're gonna get a piece of the pilot. I forget how much money was promised us, but there, 750,000, and he was gonna give us money for the teacher's contract. Remember, he stood up there, I'm gonna give you money to settle teacher's contract. I'm gonna give you money to settle teachers. It didn't happen. So we didn't get the money that was promised. So, we kind of, you know, we're dealing with it. Going into this year, we have, you know, a new mayor. We've been meeting with them regularly to discuss these things. We haven't discussed school funding, but we are talking about athletic fields and shared services. We have a shared service agreement that's been bouncing back and forth between our attorney and their attorney, and hopefully we can get some closure on that. But my understanding is that they did, I didn't see their final budget, but they did allocate $225,000 from pilot to us in their budget for next year. So we're going to get something a year and a half later, but we are going to get something out of that. Anything else?
We're meeting with borough leadership tomorrow morning to talk about shared service, talk about some of those core pieces, and see if we can reconcile the partnership and move it forward. There are currently no dollars on the district side committed to moving the partnership forward.
I will offer, I think there's been we had a lot of engagement, and now the momentum to really, we've described, we've had a lot of promises articulated, but execution is where the devil's in the details, and it's been very difficult to get everybody on the same page around what we understood publicly and what we are going to really do. And so it is a lot of discussion and a lot of meeting, and it's frankly holding a strong position that the district will be better, right? Like that we are not going to take on more than we need to. And so these are very tough conversations, which is why I was pointing out the trade-off of the type, right? If we keep the rec plan front and center in lieu of budget support, current state is what I would offer. Current state, we haven't said, hey, let's reprioritize moving the 47% to 50%. It may stall the impact we've had with the other discussion. So we do need to balance like how much we're asking and in what ways. There's actually a lot, but it's just not moving as quickly as I think any of us would have hoped in terms of alignment and execution on what was offered and agreed to and aligned on.
And I think something that you mentioned there is exactly, I want to make sure that we're clear about, or the public is clear, that there are a couple different funding streams that we're talking about here, right? So the plan to play, right, the facilities piece, the Good Shepherd and the fields piece, that is based on a recreation bond, that the borough has already taken out, right? So that is just one-time money. That's a loan that's not to do with the annual taxes in that sense we've been talking about asking them to use, right? So while, you know, I think to your point, Zakia, there's definitely a limit to how much anyone can focus on, right? There's only so many initiatives people can focus on at once, so that's definitely the truth there. In terms of logistics, raising using the tax cap to help our operating budget would not preclude also addressing the recreation. But of course, I totally understand that there's also a practical focus issue, right, for human beings, yeah.
All right. For
Time for
time's sake,
curriculum?
I'm going to go ahead and move on to section 13 with Meredith.
Good evening, everyone. Items 13.02, 13.03, 13.04 are all upcoming spring field trips at all buildings and levels. This is field trip season. Several more rolled in today. I anticipate more will be added to the agenda by the time you see it next week. But as you can see, students are going here, there, and everywhere with lots of wonderful opportunities in the concluding weeks of school, thanks to a lot of creative planning and partnership with PTAs and school leaders. Item 13.05 are two medical out-of-district home instruction placements. Item 13.06 is what I referenced a few moments ago. It is the hopeful approval of our new elementary literacy curriculum. I am recommending that we proceed with HMH into reading as our new elementary reading program. You have heard me share updates throughout the past school year that we have been piloting. Two literacy programs this year in all of our buildings across Collingswood and Oakland, in all grade levels in each school, not every classroom, but a smattering in every building as a representative across all of our buildings. We've been repeatedly seeking feedback from all of the key stakeholders involved, staff, leaders, students, of course, along with my own observations of the programs and time in classrooms and time engaging with students. And so for a variety of different reasons, I've recommended to Dr. McDowell and before you hear that we proceed with HMH into reading as our program going forward. A couple final things to note, and I'll take any questions on that or anything else. This will be a multi-year phased implementation. And so, as I referenced a few minutes ago, of course, the initial hope was to be able to do a full K-5 implementation in 1 year. That would have cost several $100,000, and obviously in the current budget context would have been utterly tone deaf to everything else going on in our district right now. And so we have pulled back repeatedly to, I think someone used the word bare minimum earlier. I think that is what I am presenting for your approval tonight. We would enter into an intent to move into a long range multi-year agreement with HMH, but we would only be paying for a small number of grade levels to implement next year, with more the following year and more the following year, until we do get to a K-5 full implementation over multiple years. That's the most cost-effective way to put a strong program in front of kids little by little over time. There is a typo in the section. It says adopted as a K-12 program. That should say K-5. We'll fix that right now.
Meredith, thank you for that detail. I appreciate that. So when you say a small level, can I assume starting with K1 maybe, and then?
Great question. So we are actively going back and forth between our curricular reps and our business office, literally as we speak over the last few days, because as I was referencing earlier, just like Beth Ann did with her team and reviewing and reconsidering funding allocation in light of everything, I'm doing the same. And so right now we're at a tipping point of being able to implement 2 or 3 grade levels next year. If we implement 2 grade levels, it frees up some additional funding for other important staff-facing savings potentially. And so I'm haggling, I guess is the right word, with our curriculum representatives to see if they can come down a bit further. But we would actually start with implementation at our upper grade levels and work our way down. That may sound backwards, but here's the rationale. Over the last few years, our lower elementary emerging reading curriculum, we've strengthened significantly in direct alignment with science of reading strategies and best practices. So we now have in our K1 and 2, and to some degree 3rd grade, a strong universal screener with Dibbles. We have Foundations as our core phonics program. We have Heggerty as our core phonemic awareness program. We have Geodes as our decodables program. And so I'm really proud of the strength of our lower elementary early literacy programming currently, and I'm confident that we could proceed for another year or 2 with that model in place. Our 3rd, 4th, and 5th, especially our 4th and 5th, has a ton of gaps in serving kids well with our reading and writing curriculum at our upper grade levels. And so we would start with our eldest students and work down over time. I'll just also say lastly, and then again, I'll take any more questions. Our district already uses HMH for our elementary, middle school, and to some, in some areas, our math program up from kindergarten through geometry and algebra 2. So this would, from a teacher-facing aspect, this would align programmatically. HMH's parent company also owns NWEA MAP, which is the universal screener that we use for secondary schools right now, and elementary for math. And so if and when future funding is available, HMH also includes it's called Performance Suite. It's a data platform that would sync all of those aligned resources from the kids data, integrating it with our curricular programs in a really seamless fashion. Right now we do a lot of that manually, matching up what kids need with where it lives in the curriculum. So for all of those factors, there's a kind of a cleanness and efficiency to it. And then last but truly not least, the students who are in the HMH reading pilot really love the content. And so when we're in those classrooms, I see one of our reading pilot teachers here tonight. The kids repeatedly tell us that they like what they're reading. The teachers report the same, that the content is really engaging and age appropriate and relevant. And even if they just read it, one of the anecdotes that I heard that was really stuck with me, sometimes I'll just read a portion of a passage, and the kids wondered if could they finish the book, and did it exist in the classroom? So there's a real, I think, increased excitement around the content that kids are learning. They think it's hard too, which is great. Anyhow, that's how we got to this point, and I wanted to give that context, that just like Beth Ann and her team were finding ways to be responsive to the current, same here. In pulling back significantly from what the initial hope was.
Thank you. Who would like to present policy?
I can hop on if you want. So 1501 are policies for first read. Policy 4352, it's been abolished. And then there's a new policy, 2530, resource materials, and that's what they just go in, they deleted a bunch of, looks like they're redefining what's considered a resource material in a library. They spent a lot of time defining what that means. 1502 are policies for second read.
That 2530 goes with the 2535 also, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. So everything in item 1502 was on last month's agenda. And then the regulation, we do in 1503, we do have a decision to make. So in regulation 1552, the sexual harassment of staff, we need to, on page 13 of the regulation, we need to choose, and I'll get to that section. Hold on a minute. I'll read it to you. We basically have to decide when we're doing an investigation. In order to reach a determination, we need to decide what the decision maker, what type of evidence they're going to use. So the two options are the preponderance of the evidence standard. Listen, I'm just reading. And a clear and convincing evidence standard. So basically when they do an investigation. I did a little research today, and the overwhelming selection, or what at least the AI on my computer was recommending, was the board select the preponderance of evidence standard. That's usually what stands.
So that's usually like a 40, that's the scale, the preponderance
Yeah.
of the evidence is which way you lean.
Right. So that's what they're recommending that the board choose, but I just needed to bring that to we just need to know which option. So if everybody's okay with that. 'Cause we have to select. And
We have
then
to vote?
once we do, this will be our regulation.
Not tonight, but yeah.
Not tonight, but are we voting on both of those, or are we just we're saying this is the one we want to put up for a vote?
No, this is a regulation. We need to select one of those two options in this regulation. And once we select the option, that'll be the regulation. Because regs only require one read by the board. So this is a revised regulation, but we need to decide. Like I said, my research suggested, like Danielle said, the preponderance of evidence.
I know we're not voting, but that's usually what we use off
Yeah.
court and family court and everything is preponderance.
Right.
Yeah.
The preponderance one, so that would be my recommendation, but as long as if everybody's okay with that? Okay,
It keeps things more fair too.
Yeah.
when You keep it.
okay, so that's that item. I will have,
So the HIB reports are going to be next month, and then we will approve all the, those items. And then now we're going to go to section 17, which is our option for public participation. So,
Do you want to close out of committee poll first? or-
yes, I would like to close out the committee hall, but before we do that, I think I just have a couple of quick points. Thank you, that's a good point. So just a couple of quick things I want to alert everybody about. We are asking to give us some dates on a possible August retreat.
you.
So if you can send us some dates that you might be available in August. I know that's a busy time of year. We're asking in April. Our state board rep asked us to have a retreat and said that she needed some dates, so that's why we're having this conversation. So if you can look at your August calendar in April and give us some idea when
I
you
know
might
it's
be
kind of
available.
crazy,
Yeah,
but
it's a
she's
little bit
actually
crazy.
scheduling into the fall.
Yeah,
So I told her I'd get her a couple dates.
yeah.
Look closer towards the end of
I
August.
can send an email about that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for, thank you. Yes. The second thing I wanted to say is that the induction for the National Honor Society is actually the same night as our board meeting, right, on the 29th. So they have moved their time to start at 5:45 in case any of us want to attend. So if you would like to attend the National Honor Society for a little bit of time before we go to the board meeting, please let us know so we don't meet quorum. And National Junior, I'm sorry, thank you. It's late, National Junior Honor Society, for the middle school. And the final thing that I want to bring up is that tomorrow, Mark Newby Elementary School, they're doing like a Green Team Earth Day Festival, their first ever, and they have invited us to attend that as well. So we got that email late last night, and then found out that we could open it up to everybody. So if you would like to come, I don't think we can meet quorum, but if you want to be there, I will be there. And so that's, let me know if you want to attend that. All right. That is from 2 to 3:30. You don't need to be there the whole time. You can just pop in and see what they're doing. So even if a lot of people want to come, which I don't suspect will be the case, but if that's the case, just let me know what time you can be there, and then I'll try to stagger that a little bit. And so now I would like to make a motion to exit committee of the whole.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay. So thank you. Now is our time for public comment. So all in favor? I'm sorry.
Aye.
God. I'll get it. So for public discussion or public participation, please stand, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. The public is reminded that attempts to resolve all concerns and complaints should first go through appropriate staff members and administrators.
Hi, Robin Hogan, CEA President. So I appreciate all the discussion that has gone on, and I understand these are heavy decisions. And I also appreciate the fact that we've been, you guys have had to talk about like large scale things. But there are a lot of details that go into this decision, whether you want to think about them or not. The student-facing staff are being asked to do more, and there's fewer of us. The number of students hasn't declined, but there's going to be more. There's going to be less of us. And so that's a concern. So there's an impact on instruction and education that we really need to be thinking about through this process. And there are a lot of fine details. Now, I will say that Dr. McDowell and I just had a conversation that has actually given me some hope, and I feel a little bit better perhaps about something. But like, there are some really fine details that we're talking about. Like there, because I was looking at trying to make heads or tails out of what was listed in the section that is 14, where they're talking about the staff members, and I'm assuming those are staff members that are staying. And because I know some numbers, not all numbers, I noticed a difference between instructional assistants. I was trying to figure out the administrative assistant situation and things like that. And I know Dr. McDowell was showing me just recently, giving me an update. But some of my concerns are like, are there going to be, and I've talked to Dr. McDowell about this just a minute ago, is are there going to be any changes to the number of ESS aides we get, so that perhaps we could keep some of our Collingswood aides who have been working for us for a long time, coming in, day out, and have building relationships with the community. Because the numbers didn't jive. They're releasing some instructional aides that are Collingswood people, members of the union. That's a concern for mine. And I did appreciate the discussion that we had about the program that you're getting, and that gave me a little more glimpse of insight into what's going on at the board office. But there is a retirement of a confidential secretary, and now we're releasing, so that position stays, but now we're releasing a CEA position, administrative assistant over there. It just really feels like the union's under attack right now. And it's very concerning. Like, the unification plan, still don't know what it is. We're renting Good Shepherd. We're going to have an empty building at Garfield. There's some money right there. If we don't rent Good Shepherd anymore, we move into Garfield. So there are still like a lot of details that whether we want to think about them or not, the public really needs you to think about them, because they're impacting instruction and they're impacting the staff every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We took some notes. We will follow up on the back end. I don't see anybody else coming, so at this point I'm going to move into section 18, which is adjournment, committee of the whole. And before I do that, I would like to say thank you, a big thank you to all of you tonight for all of your conversation and questions and spending the evening here. It's a big ask, and a big thank you to the CEA members that stayed the entire time, and of course to our buildings and grounds and our tech staff and our administrators out there. We appreciate you. So section 18, adjournment. I'd like to make a motion to, or can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Got it.
Aye.